Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt different? Not sure why? This video is your secret decoder ring. We're going on an incredible journey from level 1 to 100, unveiling the hidden environmental triggers that subtly manipulate your mood, often without you even realizing it. Prepare to see your surroundings in a whole new light. Let's start with level 1. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a quiet street, where the first hint of rain has begun to touch the cobblestones. The air carries a subtle earthy scent, the faint petrichor that rises from wet earth and stone, a signal of change yet gentle enough not to demand notice. Your shoulders loosen without conscious effort, and the mind, accustomed to motion and urgency, begins to drift. Around you, the world feels slightly hushed. Leaves glisten, each drop refracting light like tiny, fleeting prisms. Even the distant chatter of passers-by seems muffled, absorbed into the rhythm of the soft rainfall. In earlier centuries, the scent of rain held meanings beyond mere weather. Farmers in sprawling European villages, for instance, would pause to lift their faces to the sky, reading the air itself for promises of growth or caution. Merchants in crowded market squares noticed the same scent, signaling a shift in commerce. Patrons would linger under awnings, goods left unbought until the sun returned. Imagine yourself among them, feeling the weight of anticipation and the quiet satisfaction of routine interrupted. Each step across wet stone is careful, deliberate, echoing in rhythm with the pattering drops, as if the world has slowed just to accompany your attention. Yet the faint scent of rain is also a bridge between inner and outer life. In quiet towns, it prompts reflection. In bustling cities, it is a momentary pause, an intimate familiarity in otherwise impersonal streets. Imagine the rhythm of daily life, laborers moving with mechanical certainty, children jumping in shallow puddles, an elderly couple sharing a brief umbrella, heads bowed yet connected. All of it is ordinary, yet magnified by the sensory clarity that rain brings, the coolness against skin, the smell of soil, the muted clatter of city life. Even as the world continues, the moment feels suspended, a gentle invitation to notice without urgency, to linger in thought as the air itself reminds you that stillness, however brief, is possible. Imagine yourself standing in the corner of a modest kitchen, the faint hum of a refrigerator filling the space. It is not loud, not insistent, but persistent, a soft vibration that threads through the floorboards and into the quiet rhythm of the room. In the early 20th century, households began to embrace these mechanical companions. Before their arrival, families relied on iceboxes, wooden cabinets lined with tin, packed with blocks of ice delivered weekly, water dripping slowly as summer days passed. The icebox required constant attention, a rhythm of replenishment and precaution, while the refrigerator, once electric motors were perfected, offered a subtle and steady continuity, an unseen pulse that became the background of domestic life. The hum itself is a paradox of sound, simultaneously alive and inert, a mechanical heartbeat echoing across linoleum floors and tile countertops. Some people find it soothing, a constant reminder of quiet order. Others feel a vague unease, as if the machine observes without eyes, a low-level presence unnoticed until attention drifts. Imagine the workers in factories where these refrigerators were first produced, their hands shaping sheets of metal into uniform panels, the smell of oil and metal clinging to overalls, the sound of drills and presses creating a counterpoint to the homebound hum they would one day reproduce. In culture, the refrigerator's hum became emblematic of domestic modernity. Advertisements in magazines showed gleaming appliances in sunlit kitchens, children reaching for milk bottles while the soft vibration thrummed beneath their bare feet. It was a subtle reminder of progress, of invisible energy coursing through wires, transforming everyday life. Even now, in late nights when the world outside is still, the hum continues, steady and reliable, a quiet witness to the unfolding hours. Imagine yourself listening to it, letting the vibration thread through the rhythm of your own thoughts, the constant mechanical presence becoming a gentle anchor, guiding you into contemplation or, perhaps, into sleep. Imagine yourself waking just before the city fully stirs, the morning light angling through narrow window panes and spilling across the floor in long, deliberate stripes. It catches the dust motes suspended in the air, each one drifting as if moving to a rhythm only they can hear. That sunlight is warm, yet soft, brushing your skin and altering the tone of thought itself. There is a subtle change in perception at this hour. Shadows stretch longer, edges soften, and objects take on the quiet dignity of being observed for the first time. In some ways, it is the world's gentle reminder that beginnings are layered, that each day carries its own unique geometry. In historical households, this angle of light shaped more than moods. In 17th-century Dutch homes, for instance, sunlight was carefully considered, its path through high windows determining not just warmth but the placement of workspaces, the drying of linens, and even the pacing of household chores. Imagine a painter setting up an easel just where the light slants strongest, catching the subtle variations of color in fabrics or the glint in a subject's eye. The rhythm of daily life was subtly dictated by the sun's movements, by the precise way morning light cut across floors and walls. Yet it was not solely utilitarian. In monasteries and cloisters, the first beams of dawn illuminated stone corridors where monks moved in quiet procession, their habits brushing against walls worn smooth by centuries of repetition. The angle of light marked moments of reflection, prayers offered with eyes half closed, the mind drifting between devotion and memory. Even in ordinary streets, cobblestones glimmered as sunlight hit just so, and shutters creaked in response, as if acknowledging the subtle orchestration of the day. Consider now the psychology behind it. The slant of light subtly shifts your circadian rhythm, prompting alertness or gentle languor. It can awaken reflection, nostalgia, or the quiet anticipation of things yet to unfold. And as you sit, immersed in these gentle currents of morning, the world outside begins its own slow choreography. Horses clip-clop on streets, merchants prepare wares, and children emerge with small bundles, their laughter paused mid-air by the soft geometry of light. You, in turn, are caught in this ephemeral alignment, a participant in an invisible rhythm orchestrated by the sun itself, and for a moment time itself feels elongated, suspended in the comforting embrace of morning's gentle angle. The clock ticks, a gentle, unassuming companion in the quiet corners of your room. Each movement of the second hand is precise, deliberate, and yet so ordinary that we hardly notice it. Imagine yourself sitting in a study centuries ago, where clocks were rare and precious instruments. The tick-tock would punctuate moments, marking not only hours but intentions, conversations, and pauses in thought. In such spaces, the rhythm became part of the atmosphere, weaving itself subtly into the routines of life. A scholar reading by candlelight would time his observations to the steady beat, the pause of a thought measured by the soft click of gears. In the Victorian era, the popularity of pocket watches transformed not only fashion but perception itself. People began to carry rhythm in their pockets, a private cadence that punctuated their daily lives. Commuters on early trains would synchronize their steps to the invisible pulse of countless watches ticking, a harmony unseen but deeply felt. Even in the silence of a vast library, the subtle ticking of a wall clock guided the tempo of whispers, the turning of pages, the slow inhalation and exhalation of focus. Yet the clock is more than mere measurement. It becomes a companion to reflection, a reminder of patience and impermanence. In modern times, despite the omnipresence of digital displays, the analog tick retains a quiet charm, a heartbeat of continuity in a world rushing forward. Imagine the small relief in hearing that measured pulse, as if the universe, for a fleeting instant, allows itself to be regular and predictable. It shapes our perception of waiting, of anticipation, of time stretched across empty hours. With every tick, your mind drifts, perhaps to forgotten memories, perhaps to the quiet rhythm of your own breath, and yet always anchored by the constant, subtle cadence of the clock. The floor beneath you is rarely noticed, yet it shapes the rhythm of your day in quiet, almost imperceptible ways. Imagine stepping onto cold stone tiles in a centuries-old European monastery. Each footfall releases a subtle shock, a reminder that the world beneath your feet has endured long before you arrived. These tiles, smooth from centuries of sandals and shoes, carry a memory of every step taken across them. Their coolness seeps upward, anchoring the body in stillness, slowing the mind even as it moves from one chamber to another. Monks and novices alike would feel the chill on their bare feet, a gentle insistence to remain present, to observe ritual and meditation in deliberate cadence. Contrast this with the wooden floors of a rural Japanese home, sun-warmed in the afternoon light. Each plank yields slightly beneath weight, giving comfort without demanding attention. The aroma of cedar rises with the heat, mingling with the faint scent of tatami and paper screens. Here, the floor invites reflection rather than contemplation, movement rather than pause. It carries the rhythm of daily life. Children padding softly during evening chores, elders walking deliberately with sliding doors creaking in response. The wood absorbs sound and history alike, muffling the outside world while amplifying subtle interior moments. The tapping of a tea bowl, the brushing of kimono sleeves across polished surfaces. Across cultures, flooring material is more than functional. In medieval European halls, marble or stone marked spaces of power and ceremony, signaling to visitors both permanence and prestige. Meanwhile, in Ottoman courtyards, mosaic tiles cooled the ground under summer sun, offering relief to barefoot merchants and dancers alike. Even today, flooring mediates our interaction with space. A cold bathroom tile wakes the senses in the morning. A plush carpet in a study invites hours of quiet thought. The floor is the silent companion to all human endeavor, absorbing weight, temperature, and memory, shaping posture, pace, and mood without a single word. Step lightly, or linger. Feel the difference. It is beneath your feet that history, culture, and comfort converge in subtle, tangible ways, guiding the body and mind alike toward a rhythm older than memory itself. Imagine yourself seated near an open window, the room otherwise still, when a sudden brush of air passes over your skin. It is light, almost imperceptible, yet enough to make your senses shift, to pull your attention from thought to presence. There is no danger, no threat, merely the quiet movement of the atmosphere, the subtle choreography of unseen currents. Your body registers the touch instinctively, a reminder that even in calm, life is never entirely stagnant. Throughout history, drafts have held a curious role in human perception. In medieval halls, a chill slipping through stone corridors might prompt servants to adjust fires, nobles to pull cloaks closer, children to press against the warmth of hearths. Each small gust carried information, a signal of open doors, of approaching change, or simply of the passage of time marked by wind and weather. Imagine yourself walking through such a hall, the tapestry-clad walls absorbing sound, the stone floor cool beneath your feet, while an invisible finger of air traces along your shoulder. You notice it, and without fear, you respond, shifting stance, adjusting garments, aligning yourself with the environment. In daily life, the slight draft is equally profound in subtle ways. It can shift the smoke of a candle, ripple the pages of a book left open, ruffle hair or fabric, creating a quiet, intimate connection between the body and the larger moving world. Imagine a courtyard in an early Renaissance city. Merchants arrange stalls, a child chases a stray cat, and across it all, a gentle draft meanders through the streets, brushing against faces and arms, unnoticed except for the fleeting awareness it leaves behind. Even in a quiet bedroom, the faint movement of air becomes a presence, a gentle reminder that nothing is perfectly still, that even in apparent calm, the world persists and breathes. In these moments, alertness is neither urgent nor tense, it is reflective. You sense the draft, allow it to pass, and continue with a subtle awareness, a quiet acknowledgement of your place within a world that is constantly shifting, always alive, even when invisible. Imagine yourself entering a room where sunlight filters through curtains, the fabric brushing softly against the windowsill with a quiet whisper. The color of the curtains shapes the very atmosphere, though you may not notice consciously. In muted tones, soft grays, gentle beiges, faded blues, the room exhales calm. Shadows stretch lazily across floors, the light diffused like smoke in a slow-moving current. These shades have been chosen throughout history with purpose, even when subtle. In 18th-century European homes, drapery served not only as decoration but as a regulator of light and mood. Families would select colors that complemented the furnishings, but also those that invited serenity, the gentle wash of daylight softened by layered textiles. Bright colors, conversely, provoke a different rhythm. Reds, golds, and vibrant greens catch the eye and stir the mind, a faint sharpening of attention that occurs even when reading or daydreaming. In offices and salons of the early 20th century, designers recognized that the color of fabrics could influence behavior. Clients seated beneath cheerful curtains were more alert, employees beneath bold panels slightly more energetic, though no one could say exactly why. It was the invisible psychology of pigment, the interaction of light and material, the quiet shaping of perception. Consider the texture as well. Thick velvet absorbs light and sound, creating a hushed, introspective cocoon. Sheer linen lets the day in, allowing thoughts to drift with every shifting shadow. In homes and theaters alike, the careful placement and selection of curtains orchestrated subtle moods, a visual symphony played without instruments. Imagine yourself watching the sun inch across the room, colors shifting imperceptibly, the quiet interplay between light and fabric easing your mind. The room becomes a gentle companion, the curtains a mediator between the external world and your inner rhythm, shaping thought and calm in ways both deliberate and unnoticed. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a room where the sun has just begun its ascent. Objects cast elongated shadows across walls, bending and stretching in ways that subtly shift the perception of space. A chair appears taller than it is, a potted plant reaches across the floor as if trying to touch the corners of the room, and the edge of a window frame falls like a line dividing reality from imagination. Shadows, you realize, are not merely absence of light. They are an architecture of perception, shaping how safe or exposed you feel, and gently guiding your sense of comfort. Throughout history, this subtle interplay was observed and utilized, often without conscious thought. In medieval homes, narrow, high windows were designed not only to conserve heat but to control the intrusion of light, carefully modulating the shadows that fell upon the floors and walls. A hearth's glow would cast flames that danced low, providing warmth and a sense of intimacy, while corners beyond reach remained cloaked in gentle obscurity. The rhythm of daily life adjusted accordingly. Children learning near the hearth, elders seated where shadows softened, all moving in synchrony with the silent geometry of the room. In Japanese architecture, sliding shoji screens allowed light to filter through thin paper, transforming ordinary interiors into landscapes of ephemeral forms. A single branch outside could stretch its shadow across the floor like a whispered invitation to reflection, shaping both mood and movement. Anthropologists suggest that such manipulation of light and shadow influenced behavior, fostering calmness, contemplation, and an unspoken awareness of one's place in a space. Even today, shadows continue their quiet work. In early morning, when light grazes the walls obliquely, objects loom and shrink simultaneously, and your mind registers subtle cues. Corners feel safer, thresholds more guarded. You notice the delicate balance between exposure and concealment, and in that noticing, a rhythm emerges, the room's own silent heartbeat guiding your thoughts. Shadows are not static. They are a living, breathing element of the world, quietly shaping how you move, how you linger, and how you feel secure within the spaces that surround you. The hum of traffic drifts softly through the walls, a sound both distant and persistent. Imagine yourself standing by a window in a city just waking, the first cars gliding along streets slick with early morning dew. Engines murmur like an understated orchestra, each note a rhythm of movement, a quiet reassurance that life continues beyond your immediate space. In certain moods, this distant roar feels protective, a reminder that others are awake, alive, and moving along the same axis of time. The vehicles, though unseen, provide a sense of continuity, a pulse of civilization that hums along whether we participate or merely observe. Historically, the sound of transportation has always shaped human perception. In Victorian London, the clatter of horse-drawn carriages along cobblestone streets was a background hum to city life, comforting in its predictability yet capable of inducing unease if ignored. Later, the rumble of early automobiles brought a new cadence, mechanical and persistent, altering the rhythm of streets and the pace of daily routines. People adapted subconsciously to these sounds, letting the hum mark time, signaling the hours of work, errands, and quiet repose. But perception of this hum is delicate, fluid, shaped by attention and mood. At night, the same traffic becomes a distant cage, each engine a barrier, each light a reminder of boundaries, of isolation amid the expanse of the city. Imagine lying in bed, the glow of streetlights reflected in the window, the muffled roar threading through the silence, shaping thoughts without demand. The hum persists as a paradox, simultaneously grounding and disorienting, a signal of presence and an echo of separation. Your mind, attuned to its rhythm, can let it soothe or stir, drift or focus, reminding you that sound, like time, carries meaning beyond its source, a gentle yet insistent companion through the hours that stretch before sleep. Imagine the gentle rise of steam from a freshly poured cup of coffee. It curls and twists in the quiet morning air, a small dance that seems almost deliberate, a fleeting choreography shaped by heat, motion, and the stillness of the room. Each wisp carries warmth upward, brushing against the face with an invisible hand, softening tension in ways the eyes cannot fully trace. Centuries ago, in bustling Ottoman coffeehouses, scholars and poets would gather around similar cups, inhaling the bittersweet aroma while stories and debates floated like smoke between them. The steam was more than a byproduct of heat, it was a subtle companion, marking time and offering a moment of pause amid the rhythm of their lives. Across continents, the ritual transformed. In 17th-century European salons, porcelain cups held not just coffee but conversation, the curling steam reflecting sunlight through tall windows, illuminating delicate patterns on the tablecloth. Servants moved quietly, careful not to disturb the fragile wafting shapes that seemed to hang in anticipation, as if listening to the thoughts of those seated. In modern kitchens, the same phenomenon persists. Even a single cup can anchor a moment. A hand wraps around the ceramic, the scent rises and lingers, and the mind, distracted by distant worries, is momentarily reminded to breathe, to exist in the present. There is a quiet intimacy in observing steam. Each spiral fades and reforms, a constant reminder of impermanence. It teaches patience, the patience of watching something ephemeral unfold without urgency. Imagine yourself tracing it with your eyes, feeling the heat diffuse through fingertips, hearing only the faint murmur of settling liquid. In that small rising curl, anxiety softens, and a simple comfort seeps in, a warmth that has traveled centuries, from distant markets to drawing rooms, to your hands now, reminding you that even the smallest rituals carry the weight of human history and the lightness of its fleeting moments. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, walls painted in muted tones, and above, the harsh hum of fluorescent lights. At first, you notice nothing, only steady illumination. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, a rhythm reveals itself, a flicker too subtle to see, a vibration too low to hear distinctly, yet felt in the edges of awareness. The air seems heavier, and your mind, gently coaxed, begins to tire. It is not dramatic. There is no sudden discomfort, only a soft tug at alertness, a persistent whisper from your nervous system that nudges you toward a quiet fatigue. Fluorescent lighting, a modern convenience, carries with it more than mere brightness. In office spaces of the mid-20th century, workers would describe days that blurred together under a constant, humming canopy. Eyes adjusted to the cold, even glow. Skin sometimes tingled. Thoughts wandered unpredictably, as if the light itself urged subtle restlessness. Imagine sitting at a desk during such a day, papers arranged meticulously, the smell of ink and dust in the air, while a faint electrical hum becomes a companion to your work. Your mind drifts between tasks, noticing details in documents, then suddenly recalling something entirely unrelated, a memory or a daydream triggered not by conscious thought but by the ambient pulse of light. Even now, the effect persists. Supermarkets, classrooms, and hospital corridors carry the same invisible rhythm, altering mood in ways almost imperceptible. A ceiling of fluorescent tubes overhead does not demand attention, yet it shapes it quietly. The tension in shoulders, the subtle weariness of muscles, the gentle slowing of mental pace. Imagine yourself walking beneath them, footsteps soft against linoleum, a cart rolling with muted clatter, fluorescent glow reflecting off surfaces, and in that steady, unchanging light, a meditation arises, your awareness narrowing, then expanding, as fatigue and focus mingle, the body adjusting to signals too delicate to consciously track. And so the buzz continues, unremarkable yet shaping every hour spent beneath it, a gentle, unseen force reminding you that even in illumination, the mind follows rhythms unseen, quietly guiding the transition from wakefulness to rest, from attention to contemplation. Imagine yourself inhaling a room of air so dry it seems almost tangible, a thin, brittle presence that brushes across your skin and lips. Thoughts come in sharper edges, each idea snapping against the next, a subtle irritability threading through the mind. In ancient civilizations, the texture of air was more than sensation. It guided daily life. Nomadic tribes crossing deserts learned to read the dryness, understanding how it sharpened attention yet fatigued the body over hours. Scholars in medieval monasteries noticed that parchment curled differently, ink flowed more quickly, and mental focus could fray in heated, arid rooms. The air itself was a silent participant in human cognition, shaping moods without conscious consent. In contrast, imagine a humid morning in a tropical garden, the air thick with moisture and the scent of earth and flowering plants. Each inhalation feels heavy, slowing the rhythm of thought, nudging the mind toward drowsy reflection. Cities built along rivers and coasts recognized this subtle power. In Renaissance Venice, writers and artists noted how the damp, salt-laden air seemed to pull creativity inward, fostering introspection and languid contemplation. Even today, scientific studies confirm what these observers sensed intuitively. High humidity can soften attention, stretching perception into a gentle, dreamlike state. Consider how the air interacts with the body as well. The skin senses it, hair clings slightly, breath comes differently. Rooms with controlled climate, from Victorian parlors to modern laboratories, manipulate air texture deliberately, adjusting temperature and moisture to achieve desired effects, calmness, alertness, or comfort. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, aware of the invisible substance around you, its subtle pressure and resistance guiding your mood, like a silent conductor of thought. The texture of air is not merely felt, it is experienced, a continuous influence shaping cognition and emotion, coaxing the mind to either tension or gentle drift, almost without your noticing. Imagine yourself walking down a quiet street, the kind where footsteps echo softly against cobblestones and the rhythm of your own breathing fills the spaces between walls. Suddenly, a sound breaks through, the laughter of strangers, carried from an open cafe, a park bench, or a distant balcony. It is unbidden, unexpected, yet somehow familiar. The tone, light and effortless, threads its way into the folds of your day, nudging at corners of heaviness you had not noticed, stirring a subtle warmth where there was stillness. Throughout history, such moments have quietly shaped human experience. In the narrow streets of Renaissance Florence, merchants, apprentices, and travelers moved in daily routines, yet a burst of laughter, perhaps a joke shared over the exchange of goods, could ripple across alleys, momentarily loosening the weight of labor and obligation. In monastic cloisters, where silence governed long hours, even the softest chuckle from a fellow monk became a small, precious intrusion of light into disciplined stillness. Psychologists today note the phenomenon as emotional contagion. Hearing joy, even from strangers, subtly alters brain chemistry, releasing a small cascade of endorphins and easing the mind's tension. A child's giggle in a crowded market, the shared amusement of commuters in a train carriage, or the distant cackle from a cafe terrace, all act as tiny reminders of human connection, of shared experience, even when anonymity persists. You may not know these people, yet for a brief instant you are drawn into their fleeting world, a silent witness to their lightness. It shifts the texture of your own presence, the rhythm of your steps, the lift of your shoulders, the pause between thoughts. Laughter is a gentle force, moving quietly across boundaries, threading through silence, and leaving traces of warmth long after the sound has faded. In that moment, the day feels a little less heavy, the air a little softer, and the simple act of being, of listening, of noticing, becomes a subtle, shared celebration of life itself. Barely audible, music seeps through walls, drifting from apartments, houses, or distant streets. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, the hum of a radiator beneath your fingertips, the soft creak of floorboards as you shift in place, and somewhere beyond, a melody, too faint to fully grasp, threads through the silence. It carries a mood not chosen by you, yet it shapes your perception, brushing against memories and emotions like a ghostly hand. Notes rise and fall in patterns you recognize but cannot control, leaving fragments lingering in the air, a half-formed sentiment, a pulse you can neither grasp nor dismiss. Throughout history, such uninvited music has often defined spaces and states of mind. In the narrow streets of medieval cities, musicians would play from balconies, church bells would chime, and melodies would seep into homes, influencing moods and marking time. Later, in densely packed urban neighborhoods, the faint strains of a piano, a violin, or a gramophone would drift through thin walls, connecting lives in subtle, almost invisible ways. You might not hear the lyrics clearly, yet the harmonies resonate, shaping the rhythm of your day or the quiet of your night. The peculiar intimacy of faint music lies in its incompleteness. Your mind seeks patterns, filling the gaps, completing the melody in ways both comforting and unsettling. At times, it evokes nostalgia, a memory of a song once loved or a moment long past. At others, it conjures unfamiliar longing, a feeling borrowed from lives nearby, echoing through walls you thought separated you. In this gentle intrusion, there is both presence and absence, a soft insistence that life continues elsewhere while yours remains still. You become aware of your own breathing, the subtle creak of the chair beneath you, the way the room itself absorbs sound and reshapes it. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the faint music threads into the quiet of your own mind, guiding it to drift, to linger, and to eventually surrender to the hush of the night. Imagine standing by an open window just as the morning stirs awake. The usual chorus of birdsong fills the air, high-pitched warbles, low coos, rhythmic chirps blending into a familiar, almost unnoticed soundtrack. Then, as if a single conductor lifted an invisible baton, the sound ceases. The birds are gone or simply still. You notice it first in the body, a subtle tightening in the chest, a quickening pulse, an instinctive pause in breath. The mind takes a moment longer to catch up, puzzled by the absence of what has always been there. Across history, humans have been attuned to such silences. In agrarian villages, the sudden quiet might signal the approach of predators or storms. Even the faintest pause in routine animal calls could mean the difference between safety and danger. Early naturalists recorded similar moments, noting that before storms, birds often ceased their songs, leaving an eerie calm that blanketed forests and fields alike. The absence becomes a presence, filling the space with tension, however subtle, a quiet that shapes perception more than any sound ever could. In modern cities, the effect is just as potent, though the cause may be entirely mundane. A passing shadow of a hawk, a sudden gust that stirs trees, or the momentary hush before rain touches pavement can trigger the same bodily alertness. There is a strange intimacy in this silence. It is both shared and personal. You hear the world holding its breath, and in response, your body remembers that it too is part of this environment, reacting before the mind labels what is happening. The sudden stillness teaches awareness. It reminds us that life is not a constant hum, that the natural world communicates in pauses as well as sounds. Imagine yourself there, listening to absence itself, feeling the heartbeat of quiet ripple outward. In that moment, every detail, the color of leaves, the angle of sunlight, the texture of air on skin, becomes sharper, more alive. And then, inevitably, the birds resume, the world exhales, and you, too, find yourself settling back into rhythm, carrying with you a heightened appreciation for the subtle dialogues that exist beyond words. Imagine yourself lifting a cup of water to your lips, the surface trembling slightly as you tilt it. The moment of contact with your mouth is delicate, almost imperceptible, yet it sends a ripple through your body. Too warm, and the sensation encourages drowsiness, a gentle surrender. Too cold, and your mind stirs, alert to the sudden contrast, aware of each nerve it touches. Water, so ordinary in daily life, carries subtle instructions for the brain, guiding balance between calm and alertness, a reminder that even small acts can shape perception. Throughout history, humans have been attentive to these delicate interactions. Ancient bathhouses, for instance, were spaces where water's temperature dictated not only comfort but social ritual. Patrons adjusted to pools of varying warmth, moving from heated chambers to cooler plunge pools, their bodies responding to gradients, heart steadying or quickening with each shift. Imagine yourself walking along marble floors, steam curling around you, footsteps muffled, the scent of minerals and herbs filling the air, each sip of water or cool rinse amplifying a quiet awareness of self and environment. Even in simpler daily routines, the temperature of water holds sway. Morning or evening, it influences mood. A cup poured from a careful kettle, a stream drawn from a well, a vessel left overnight cooling by the window. Each variation teaches subtle discipline of the senses, an intimacy between human and element, a rhythm that shapes thought as surely as it shapes skin. The warmth or chill is never extreme, yet each sip is a lesson in awareness, a reminder that calm and alertness coexist in fragile equilibrium, and that the simplest element, water, can guide them both with gentle precision. Imagine yourself gazing upward on a quiet morning, the sky pale blue and vast, stretching endlessly above rooftops and tree canopies. This soft expanse seems to ease thought, the mind unspooling like gentle clouds drifting without urgency. In early civilizations, humans observed the sky as both guide and companion. Farmers in ancient Mesopotamia timed planting and harvest according to subtle shifts in light, the color and clarity of morning skies marking seasons and moods. Sailors crossing the Mediterranean noted how a clear sky lifted morale, easing the tension of long voyages, while a deep, storm-gray horizon pressed subtly on spirits, regardless of preparedness or plans. The color of the sky has long held cultural and psychological weight. Painters in the Renaissance studied its gradients meticulously, understanding that a dusky blue evoked calm reflection, while storm gray suggested inevitable change. Even today, environmental studies confirm what was intuited centuries ago. Our perception of the sky shapes attention, pace of thought, and mood. Imagine the air smelling faintly of wet stone or sun-warmed dust, each inhalation intertwining with light and color to guide consciousness. The sky becomes a silent companion, lulling or pressing, shaping your internal rhythm almost unnoticed. The vastness above reminds you of continuity beyond daily concerns, a gentle, constant presence that shifts slowly, shaping thought and feeling with quiet authority. Imagine yourself entering a room where the arrangement of chairs speaks without a single word. One seat faces a sunlit window, the world outside framed like a living painting. Another faces a blank wall, shadows stretching across its surface. Your choice of where to sit is subtle, almost unconscious, yet it carries the weight of perception, influencing confidence, openness, and how you feel in that space. The chair itself becomes a silent guide, shaping posture, gaze, and the rhythm of your thoughts. Throughout history, the orientation of seating has been a quiet instrument of influence. In Victorian parlors, chairs were deliberately positioned. A guest placed by the window would be invited into conversation with light on their face, their posture naturally more upright, their words more assured. In contrast, chairs set facing walls encouraged reflection, humility, or introspection, their occupants drawn inward, their presence less demanding of attention. Even in public spaces, grand cafes of Paris or the libraries of Oxford, choice of seats subtly dictated interaction. A window seat suggested openness to the outside world, a corner against a wall suggested safety, retreat, or observation. Psychologists today explain this phenomenon through environmental cues. Facing a window increases alertness and mental flexibility, providing visual stimulation and a sense of control over the surrounding environment. Facing a wall, however, reduces peripheral input, focusing the mind inward, encouraging reflection but also, sometimes, a quiet hesitancy. The body responds, shoulders relax or stiffen, feet shift, hands find new positions, all without deliberate thought. As you consider the chair before you now, imagine the silent dialogue it establishes. The choice shapes not only posture but presence, influencing how you listen, speak, or even imagine yourself in the world. In this quiet architecture of space, every seat is a statement, and every glance, a subtle affirmation or restraint. The room is alive with these whispered communications, and you, in turn, move with the rhythm it quietly composes. The glow of streetlights spills across pavement and sidewalk, a quiet companion in the dark. Imagine yourself stepping out for a brief walk, the night wrapping around you, and above, lamps cast their halos, some a warm orange, some a stark white, shaping the atmosphere without intent. Orange glows carry a soft comfort, bathing streets in gentle warmth, making corners feel intimate, shadows less threatening, even the simplest alleyways whispering familiarity. It's a light that seems to breathe with the city, a reminder that even in darkness, there is a watchful presence. White streetlights, by contrast, are clinical in their honesty. Every edge is revealed, every leaf or crack sharply defined. The same sidewalk that glowed softly moments before is now precise, analytical, almost scrutinizing. Streets under white lamps feel awake, alert, measured. For centuries, light has been a silent shaper of human perception. Gas lamps in 19th-century towns guided footsteps with flickering warmth, encouraging nocturnal wandering, commerce, and conversation. Electric lights replaced them, their intensity dictating not only visibility but mood, subtly calibrating the rhythms of evening life. Yet the effect is not merely historical, it is personal. Depending on your state of mind, the glow can soothe or unsettle. A tired mind might find orange halos restful, each lamplight a heartbeat that stretches time, slowing the pace of thought. A restless mind under white illumination may feel sharper, edges of anxiety or attention accentuated, the night measured in lines and contours rather than soft spaces. The streetlight is both indifferent and intimate, casting illumination across public spaces while entering your private experience, shaping perception without instruction. As you walk or pause beneath it, the glow threads into your awareness, mingling with your breath, the rhythm of your steps, and the subtle pull of memory, gently guiding attention outward or inward, until the light itself becomes part of the quiet architecture of the night. Imagine sitting across from someone in a quiet room, the light falling through a single window. Shadows stretch across their face, shifting subtly as the sun moves or as a curtain sways. You notice the slope of their cheek, the way half their expression is cloaked in darkness, and before thought can name it, a sense of trust or doubt rises inside you. Long before words are spoken, shadows guide perception, shaping the mind's first impressions with almost imperceptible influence. In historical salons, artisans understood this instinctively. Candlelight and angled sunlight were used to highlight or soften features, drawing focus to certain gestures, diminishing others. In Renaissance portraits, painters captured this interplay deliberately. The half-lit face could suggest virtue, secrecy, or introspection. Even today, lighting in offices and homes subtly guides human interaction. A colleague's frown cast in shadow feels heavier, a smile illuminated by warm light seems more sincere. Our bodies register these signals first. Pupils adjust, muscles relax or tense, posture shifts, responses formed over millennia before rational analysis begins. Shadows act as a silent language, a dialogue between light and perception. Imagine yourself observing this quietly, the faint aroma of old wood or paper in the room, the soft rustle of clothing as gestures are made. Each tilt of the head, each movement in shade, carries unspoken weight. The mind may follow later, but the body already understands, attuned to nuances too subtle for conscious thought. Shadows indoors are more than mere absence of light. They are guides, shaping attention, shaping feeling, shaping the rhythm of human exchange in ways you may never fully name. Imagine yourself sitting in a room where conversations unfold just beyond your immediate attention. Words are spoken, tones shift, but meaning drifts past you like leaves on a stream. Even when not fully understood, the presence of voices affects the mind. A murmur of laughter can ease tension, a soft debate can intrigue, while distant argument can tug subtly at unease. The human brain, finely attuned to sound, registers patterns and fluctuations, shaping mood and awareness before conscious thought intervenes. Throughout history, people have lived surrounded by background chatter, from bustling marketplaces to crowded royal courts. In medieval halls, attendants whispered behind tapestries, nobles debated policy in distant chambers, and children practiced games at the edge of awareness. Imagine yourself walking silently along a stone corridor, faint voices echoing through arches, footsteps muffled on worn floors. Your mind absorbs fragments. A name, a promise, a question half-formed, and though the content is unclear, it leaves an imprint, a gentle influence on attention and emotion. Even today, in modern offices or cafes, background conversations continue to shape experience. The murmur of colleagues at work, chatter from a nearby table, or the soft murmur of a crowded train car alters focus, either soothing or subtly agitating, depending on rhythm and tone. Imagine yourself leaning back, listening without needing to participate, feeling the mind respond to presence rather than content. The voices are not demanding. They are companions, shaping the ambient space of thought and emotion. In their quiet, constant way, they remind us that even when unattended, the world is alive with motion, sound, and invisible influence, guiding the mind between calm and gentle alertness. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the background, when suddenly the door slams shut. The sound is brief but sharp, a tiny percussion that travels along the floor and walls, stirring attention even in the midst of calm. Throughout history, domestic noises have carried subtle influence over human perception. In early 20th century households, refrigerators were smaller, heavier, and less insulated, so each door closing echoed more loudly, punctuating daily routines in ways often unnoticed until repeated. Families adjusted subconsciously. Children paused mid-play, conversations paused, meals delayed, all attuned to the sudden mechanical punctuation. In urban apartments of the 1950s, with kitchens adjacent to living rooms, the fridge door could signal activity, mark transitions, or even punctuate tension between roommates and family members. Advertisements emphasized quietness, promising that new designs would avoid disturbing sleep or conversation. Yet even today, the slam retains a capacity to spike alertness, like a fleeting signal that something has changed. The sound is a paradox, small and ordinary, yet capable of creating a momentary shift in perception. Imagine yourself noticing the vibration, feeling the room's stillness momentarily fractured, then slowly settling back into the constant hum and calm. Even mundane mechanical noises, when sudden, remind us of presence and absence, of routine interrupted, and of the delicate thresholds between attention and relaxation, shaping our inner rhythm almost without our noticing. Imagine yourself stepping into a room where the air carries the subtle presence of soap. A fresh, gentle aroma drifts just ahead of you, crisp and delicate, brushing against memory in ways almost imperceptible. It invites a sense of renewal, a quiet reassurance that the space has been cared for, that small rituals of cleanliness have been observed. The scent lingers on the fingertips, the edges of surfaces, even in the folds of fabric, and it shapes perception before your eyes register the room itself. Throughout history, the sense of cleanliness have carried both practical and psychological weight. In medieval households, herbs like lavender, rosemary, and thyme were boiled in water for washing, their fragrances marking the boundary between interior order and the chaos of the streets. Bathhouses in Ottoman cities were perfumed deliberately, their aromas signaling hygiene, social ritual, and status. Even in early modern Europe, soap was as much a marker of civility as a cleaning agent. The scent alone indicated care, refinement, and attention to daily ritual. The contrast is subtle but telling. Harsh, chemical odors evoke sterility, a sense of space emptied of warmth, of human touch. They can call forth memories of infirmaries, antiseptic corridors, or institutional routines, where order replaces comfort and cleanliness becomes obligation rather than invitation. In contrast, softer, natural scents awaken awareness of the body, the senses, and the rhythm of everyday life, encouraging small, restorative gestures. The smoothing of hands over linens, the careful stacking of dishes, or the slow unfolding of garments. Psychologists note that olfactory cues are intimately linked to emotion and memory. A simple fragrance can shift mood, stimulate reflection, or invite calm attentiveness. As you breathe in the delicate aroma of soap now, imagine the ripple it sends through thought and sensation. A grounding moment, a subtle renewal, a gentle reassurance that the world, for a brief instant, has been reset. In this quiet rhythm, the simplest of rituals, the act of washing, of scenting, of noticing, becomes a bridge between body, mind, and the spaces we inhabit. Clocks are more than instruments of measurement. They are silent arbiters of attention. Imagine a room where a clock hangs prominently on the wall, its face unmistakable, numbers sharp, hands moving steadily. Even without conscious thought, you begin to feel the pressure of each tick, a subtle tightening of urgency, as if the day itself leans forward, nudging you toward action. Visible clocks shape behavior in quiet ways. The scholar checking notes, the office worker glancing at the hour, or the diner calculating how long until a meeting. The presence of time, so plainly displayed, structures thought and mood alike. Now imagine the same room without a visible clock, or with one hidden behind a curtain or a shelf. Time becomes amorphous, stretching or shrinking at will. Moments of waiting do not press upon the mind. The rhythm of your actions is guided only by internal sense, by breath, by bodily habits. Historically, humans have long contended with these subtle influences. Monks in medieval cloisters often avoided visible clocks, allowing the natural progression of daylight to mark their work, prayer, and reflection. In early modern workshops, timepieces were sometimes concealed, letting craftsmen measure their labor by repetition and experience rather than by an imposing hand on a dial. The psychology is subtle yet profound. Visible clocks trigger anticipation, sometimes even anxiety, as the mind subconsciously calculates deadlines and durations. Hidden clocks, conversely, invite a gentle drift, a release of control, a momentary surrender to the flow of experience rather than the strict measurement of it. Imagine yourself seated in such a space. Without a clock to assert its dominion, the room breathes with you. Your thoughts slow, your attention widens, and time becomes a companion rather than a taskmaster. In this interplay between presence and concealment, clocks reveal their quiet power. Not in the seconds they count, but in the way they shape the awareness of those who inhabit the space around them, a rhythm felt as much in the mind as in the measured tick. Imagine sitting in an old house, the walls thick but imperfect, the windows sealed yet never entirely airtight. A slender breeze threads its way through the smallest cracks, brushing against skin, rustling paper, carrying with it the faint scent of leaves, damp earth, or distant rain. It is barely audible, a soft susurration that flutters at the edge of attention. At first, it might startle, the mind instinctively alert to movement it cannot see. Then, if you allow yourself to settle, it becomes a companion, a subtle rhythm that guides breathing, that whispers patience and quiet, almost like a lullaby. Throughout history, humans have attuned themselves to such gentle currents. In medieval cottages, thin walls and wooden shutters let in tiny drafts, which villagers interpreted as messages from the outside world, warnings of approaching storms, or simply the signal that the day was shifting. In Japanese tea houses, sliding doors left slender gaps for wind to pass, allowing nature to participate in ceremonies, as though the breeze itself were another guest, moving silently, shaping perception, softening thought. Even today, the phenomenon persists. Standing near a window in a modern apartment, a similar whisper carries through the slightest opening, unnoticed by most but felt by the body first. The pulse quickens, hairs lift subtly, attention sharpens, and only then does the mind register meaning. Imagine yourself leaning into the sound, feeling the temperature shift, the gentle tug of air on fingertips, the faint rustle it causes on curtains or papers. It is a conversation without words, a dialogue between the world and your senses. The whisper through cracks reminds us that even the smallest movements of air can carry presence, history, and comfort, quietly shaping the rhythm of our inner world. Imagine yourself sitting by a window as rain begins to fall. The first drops land softly, each one forming a delicate circle on the surface of a puddle. Soon, a rhythm emerges, a steady, almost meditative tapping, like a quiet drumbeat that the mind can follow without effort. In these moments, calm spreads through the body, a subtle alignment with the pattern of nature itself. The steady rhythm soothes, a gentle guide to reflection and rest, as if the world has slowed to match your breathing. Yet not all rain falls evenly. Some drops land irregularly, scattering unpredictably across rooftops and leaves. These variations create a quiet tension, a subtle disquiet that pricks the edges of awareness. In earlier centuries, farmers and sailors alike learned to read the rhythm of rain, understanding that steady patterns predicted gentle weather, while irregular bursts could signal change. Imagine yourself walking along a narrow path, stones slick beneath your feet, listening intently to the cadence above, your body instinctively adjusting to each variation, your mind oscillating between ease and alertness, attuned to the subtle guidance of nature. Even in modern cities, the sound of rain continues to influence mood. From rooftops to puddles in alleyways, the patterns shape perception without demanding attention. A consistent drizzle lulls the mind, an uneven scatter sparks brief awareness, drawing focus to small details, the shimmer of a leaf, the arc of a droplet, the faint reflection of light in water. Imagine yourself immersed in this quiet symphony, letting the steady and the irregular mingle, noticing how your own rhythm adapts, heartbeats subtly syncing to the world outside. Through such simple observation, the mind learns to rest, to wander, and to find balance amid impermanence. Imagine yourself lying beneath a blanket, the fabric settling across your body with quiet insistence. Heavy blankets press gently, distributing weight evenly over shoulders and limbs, grounding the mind in a tactile rhythm. In Scandinavian traditions, people used thick woolen covers not merely for warmth but for their calming influence, believing that the steady pressure eased tension and soothed the restless spirit. Modern studies echo this intuition. Weighted blankets stimulate a sense of security, a subtle embrace that encourages the nervous system to release its grip on worry. Conversely, lighter covers allow freedom of movement, but with that freedom comes a subtle unrest. A thin sheet drifts with every breath, every shift of body weight, reminding the mind that boundaries are soft, the night open and uncontained. Historical records from colonial homes describe how servants and household members carefully layered bedding, adjusting the weight of quilts to match seasonal comfort and the occupant's temperament. Children slept under heavier duvets to quell nighttime fears, while adults sometimes preferred lighter covers for flexibility, though at the cost of restlessness. Imagine yourself noticing the texture against your skin, the cool smoothness of cotton, the soft resilience of wool, the comforting heaviness that presses rhythmically, like a quiet heartbeat. The weight of a blanket becomes a companion, shaping sleep and thought in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. Anxiety softens under its presence, mind and body aligning to the steady pressure, while lighter coverings encourage alertness and movement, a gentle reminder that even the simplest objects can guide the rhythms of your night, nudging you toward either calm or wakefulness, almost without you realizing. Imagine yourself sitting in a dim room, the only illumination a cool, steady glow emanating from a screen. Its light casts a pale reflection across your features, sharpens the contours of your surroundings, and threads into your awareness in ways that feel both intimate and disorienting. The glow keeps your mind alert, tracing patterns in text, images, and movement, even as your body signals fatigue, whispering for rest, for stillness, for darkness. Throughout history, light has shaped human activity, though never so insidiously as in this age of screens. Before electricity, candlelight or the amber glow of oil lamps marked the boundary between day and night, signaling the time to rest, the time to rise. Eyes adapted gradually, minds slowed with the setting sun. Today, artificial illumination is relentless. The blue wavelengths emitted by digital displays mimic daylight, disrupting circadian rhythms, nudging the brain into wakefulness, while the body continues to crave the familiar cues of night. Psychologists and sleep researchers describe this as a tension between physiological need and cognitive engagement. Each notification, movement across the screen, or scrolling rhythm maintains focus, releasing microbursts of dopamine that subtly resist closure. The eyes perceive clarity, the mind perceives urgency, and yet the body's muscles soften, the head sinks, and a quiet insistence for rest persists. Even in public spaces, cafes, offices, bedrooms, the same dynamic plays out. People lean toward the light, drawn by the clarity and connection it offers, oblivious to the subtle compromise of ease and sleep. Imagine the sensation now, your fingers resting on a device, the soft glow painting shapes on walls, the mind alert yet the body heavy. In this suspended state, you become aware of the paradox. Light designed to reveal, to sharpen, to connect, simultaneously obscures the gentle invitation of night and reminds you of the delicate, ongoing balance between wakefulness and rest. Sunlight filters through a window, and in its warmth, dust drifts lazily, suspended like tiny worlds caught in motion. Imagine yourself leaning back in a quiet room, watching these particles move in slow, unpredictable arcs, illuminated as though the air itself has been painted. Each mote becomes a marker of passing time, subtle reminders that moments slip by, carrying with them memories, decisions, and fleeting possibilities. The effect is gentle yet poignant, a quiet melancholy that does not demand attention, but lingers softly, inviting contemplation. For centuries, humans have observed this phenomenon, often without words, letting it shape moods and reflections. In candlelit chambers before electricity, sunlight caught motes in the air much the same, yet its presence was fleeting, marking the hours of labor, study, or leisure. Artists and philosophers have long drawn inspiration from such quiet scenes. The Impressionists, for example, often captured the intangible. Sunlight scattering across rooms, particles hovering in the beams, turning mundane interiors into spaces suspended in time. In meditation and poetry, the slow drift of dust has become a metaphor for the passage of life, visible yet untouchable, transient yet enduring, reminding observers of impermanence without urgency or alarm. The beauty lies in its subtle unpredictability. One moment, the beam may appear nearly empty. The next, a swarm of motes dances like sparks from some unseen hearth. The effect is soothing, almost hypnotic, as your gaze follows their lazy arcs. It invites the mind to wander, to consider patterns in stillness, to measure the rhythm of one's own breathing against the slow, delicate drift of dust. Even the smallest movement, a hand reaching toward a shelf, a sigh, or the turn of a page, alters their trajectory, merging human presence with the quiet choreography of light and air. In this way, dust in sunbeams becomes more than particles. It is a meditation on time, on presence, on observation itself, quietly stirring reflection, a companion to thought as your mind drifts toward rest. Imagine a quiet kitchen, the table set for a meal, sunlight spilling across worn wood. A knife scrapes lightly against a plate, a spoon taps the edge of a bowl. The sound is soft but deliberate, a rhythm the body recognizes instantly. It carries the weight of routine, the assurance that someone is preparing sustenance, that life continues in small, measured motions. The clink of cutlery is more than a noise. It is a marker of presence, a subtle signal to the senses that all is as it should be. Across cultures and centuries, humans have attuned themselves to these domestic sounds. In 18th-century European homes, the afternoon tea required precise placement of teaspoons and saucers. Servants and hosts alike understood that the harmony of clinks and murmurs reassured guests, establishing calm and order. In traditional Japanese households, the careful arrangement of chopsticks and bowls was itself a language, a tactile ritual accompanied by soft metallic or ceramic sounds, indicating care, attention, and shared participation in life's rhythms. Yet the same sounds, or their absence, can evoke unease. A solitary clink in an empty room might feel hollow, echoing the absence of companionship, hinting at isolation rather than comfort. The body reacts first, a subtle tightening of muscles, a quickened awareness, even before the mind interprets the meaning. Imagine yourself leaning into these sounds, noting the warmth of the kitchen, the faint aroma of food, the texture of the table under your fingertips. Each tap, scrape, or ring carries history and intimacy, a reminder that even the simplest household noises anchor us in a shared human experience, gently shaping perception, subtly influencing the rhythm of thought and feeling. Imagine yourself running your fingers along the spine of a well-worn book, lifting it carefully to your face. The scent rises immediately, warm, slightly musty, tinged with the faint sweetness of ink and paper. It is a subtle aroma, yet it carries with it an entire world of memory. Even before opening the pages, your mind begins to shift, thought slowing, attention folding inward, as though the air itself has drawn you toward reflection. Through centuries, the smell of books has been a companion to thought. In candlelit studies of scholars or the quiet corners of monastic libraries, the scent of aged paper mingled with dust and wax, creating a unique atmosphere. Imagine yourself sitting at a heavy oak desk, quills and parchment arranged nearby, the faint crackle of candle flames accompanying the delicate fragrance. Each inhalation grounds you in the space, a subtle guide for contemplation, turning the simple act of reading into a meditative ritual. Even in bustling modern libraries, the olfactory presence of books remains powerful. Cardboard covers, new ink, and older volumes stacked high produce layers of scent, coaxing the mind toward calm. Walking among shelves, you notice how the aroma ebbs and flows, sometimes sharp, sometimes gentle, shaping mood without demanding conscious attention. Imagine yourself lingering, letting the fragrance draw your thoughts along quiet pathways of memory, curiosity, and imagination. In this way, the smell of books becomes more than scent. It becomes a subtle architect of thought, guiding the mind toward stillness, reflection, and a gentle awareness of time unfolding. Imagine yourself in a quiet room where curtains move gently, stirred by the faintest draft. The motion is slow, almost imperceptible, yet your mind registers it, sensing life in what is otherwise still. Across centuries, humans have noticed that subtle movement in familiar spaces creates a sense of presence. In Victorian parlors, households with large windows and airy drapes observed how the sway of curtains, touched by morning light or evening breeze, could suggest movement even when no one entered. It was a gentle, subconscious signal, shaping attention and awareness without conscious thought. Artists and writers of the 19th century often described this effect, noting how a drifting fabric seemed to animate a room, giving it quiet life. Even today, psychologists recognize that peripheral motion draws the brain's focus, a reflex from ancient survival instincts. Slow, rhythmic movement suggests someone, or something, is near. Imagine the fabric brushing against itself, the folds catching light and shadow, a visual whisper that calms and intrigues simultaneously. The room becomes more than empty space. It is active in subtle ways, hinting at stories untold, life unnoticed, and rhythms that continue while you observe in stillness. Consider the texture of the curtains, their weight and weave, influencing how they react to even the slightest air current. Heavy brocades drift with dignified slowness, while thin linens twist and flutter with a soft urgency. Imagine yourself watching, letting your attention follow the gentle arcs, feeling your thoughts sway along with them. In these slow, quiet movements, rooms gain a pulse of their own, reminding you that presence is not always defined by sound or touch. Even stillness is a rhythm, and even silence can move, shaping your awareness almost imperceptibly. Imagine yourself standing at a city corner, the hum of life unfolding all around. Vehicles pass, tires whisper against pavement, and distant footsteps form a rhythm both chaotic and familiar. The sounds are not merely background, they carry tone, mood, and subtle influence. A wailing siren cuts through the ordinary, sharp and insistent, sending tension up your spine, a reminder of urgency, of unpredictability. Yet nearby, the murmur of conversation drifts from a cafe or an apartment balcony, soft and consistent, weaving a gentle counterpoint that soothes the mind, much like the steady roll of ocean waves against a quiet shore. Throughout history, humans have been attuned to environmental soundscapes, long before urban life condensed experience into layers of noise. In medieval towns, the tolling of bells, the clatter of carts over cobblestones, and the distant calls of merchants created a complex auditory environment that guided daily activity. The town square's hum marked rhythms of work, leisure, and vigilance. Today, though technology has intensified and compressed these sounds, the principle remains. Noise carries emotional weight, shaping perception, subtly modulating alertness, calm, and even thought. Psychologists describe this as auditory salience, the way certain frequencies, rhythms, or volumes prompt emotional and physiological responses. A siren triggers immediate attention, heightening heart rate, sharpening focus, while the low, continuous murmur of human presence relaxes, signaling safety and shared experience. The body responds almost imperceptibly. Posture straightens or eases, breath accelerates or slows, muscles contract or release. As you listen now, imagine the city as an orchestral score, each element tuned to influence the mind. The tension of a distant emergency balances against the reassuring pulse of human murmurs. The pattern of sound guides awareness, coloring perception without conscious choice. In the subtle interplay of discord and harmony, the street becomes a teacher. Some tones alert, others comfort, and in their quiet coexistence, they remind you of your own rhythm, your own pulse, resonating within the cadence of urban life. The ceiling above you is more than a boundary. It is a subtle influence on thought, mood, and perception. Imagine yourself standing in a room with a low, pressing ceiling. Each step feels slightly constrained, each gesture measured against the weight of overhead space. Low ceilings compress attention, focusing it inward, sharpening detail yet subtly discouraging imagination. Thoughts may feel contained, decisions weighed against invisible pressure. Historically, such architecture was common in modest homes, cottages, and workshops. In these spaces, people adapted instinctively, letting the spatial limits shape daily routines, conversations, and even posture. The compression of the ceiling mirrors the compression of time and effort, an intimate reminder of physical and mental boundaries. Now, imagine a vaulted hall or cathedral, the ceiling soaring overhead in graceful arches. Space expands perception. Eyes lift, shoulders relax, and the mind follows, wandering into ideas, memory, and abstraction. Architects of medieval cathedrals understood this intuitively, designing interiors not only to awe but to elevate thought. Light falling through stained glass guides the gaze upward, while stone ribs draw attention along patterns invisible in their complexity yet deeply felt. In grand galleries, libraries, or modern atriums, high ceilings invite reflection, encouraging curiosity, creativity, and a sense of liberation from the ordinary. The psychology is subtle yet profound. The ceiling, while fixed and silent, communicates to the brain in ways we rarely notice consciously. Low ceilings encourage focus, intimacy, sometimes even tension. Vaulted spaces invite expansion, contemplation, and a sense of possibility. Imagine yourself moving from one space to another, feeling the shift. The mind adapts, pacing itself differently, adjusting the flow of attention, imagination, and emotion. In architecture, in memory, and in perception, ceilings shape experience as much as furniture, color, or light. They are invisible companions, guiding thought, stretching or contracting awareness, reminding you that even the air above is a measure of the spaces we inhabit and the rhythms we carry within us. Imagine a darkened room, the soft hum of electronics barely noticeable. On the monitor, colors drift and shift, abstract patterns moving slowly across the screen. The glow is gentle, almost hypnotic, illuminating your face with muted light that constantly changes, highlighting and shadowing features in a rhythm you do not control. It is stillness made dynamic, a quiet spectacle that invites the mind to linger, even as the body relaxes. Attention subtly drifts toward these patterns, absorbing their motion, yet never demanding focus. The phenomenon is not entirely modern. In earlier centuries, humans were drawn to flickering flames or moving reflections, from candlelight on walls to sunlight dancing through stained glass. Such shifting illumination held attention without urgency, offering a calming focus, a gentle meditation on movement itself. Today, the digital equivalent carries the same subtle power. Screensavers, once practical measures to protect monitors, have become tiny landscapes of contemplation. They draw the gaze in without words, without action, shaping thought and perception through pure visual rhythm. The body notices first. Pupils dilate, shoulders relax, the mind eases into observation before it realizes it is observing. Imagine yourself tracing the slow curves of light, feeling the warmth of the glow on skin, noting how the shifting hue affects your perception of the room's depth, its corners, and its textures. There is an almost imperceptible dialogue between the patterns and your senses, a gentle reminder that stillness is rarely inert. Even the quiet of a screen conveys presence, subtly shaping how awareness flows and how calmness or distraction settles into the mind. Imagine yourself walking along a quiet path, and as you pass, a faint scent reaches you, soft petals brushing against the air. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it lingers, nudging memory and attention in ways that feel familiar, though you cannot immediately place why. A single whiff can alter the rhythm of your thoughts, slowing the mind or lifting it gently, as though you have briefly touched a fragment of another life, another moment long ago, carried now on the current. Throughout history, the fragrance of flowers has been more than mere pleasure. In royal gardens and monastery cloisters, scents were cultivated with care, chosen to calm, to inspire reflection, or to mark ceremonies of passage. Imagine yourself in a Renaissance garden, stone paths lined with lavender, roses, and jasmine. Gentle breezes carry hints of each blossom across marble fountains. Patrons and gardeners alike adjust subtly to the flow of fragrance, their moods influenced without conscious awareness, hearts quieting or stirring as petals release their volatile essence into the world. Even today, the act of passing a flowering bush on a city street can carry the same effect. A faint whiff evokes distant memories, a childhood garden, a festival, or a fleeting encounter. You may not recognize the source, yet your mind travels backward, bridging time and space. In that instant, the scent becomes a quiet companion, shaping hours, threading together awareness and recollection, reminding you of the profound, often invisible ways that simple, transient elements, like a flower's perfume, can ripple through perception, guiding thought, feeling, and the gentle passage of consciousness itself. Imagine yourself in a quiet room just after rain, sunlight filtering through a window, scattering across the walls in delicate arcs of color. The rainbows do not need explanation, and their presence carries no demand for logic. In centuries past, artisans noticed these fleeting patterns while arranging stained glass or polishing crystal chandeliers, understanding instinctively that light and moisture could create moments of wonder within interiors. These refracted colors softened edges, brightened corners, and lent ordinary rooms an unexpected vibrancy, unnoticed until one paused to observe. The angle of light is subtle yet deliberate, changing throughout the day as the sun shifts, each moment offering a slightly different cascade of hues. Renaissance painters, fascinated by natural optics, often sought to capture this phenomenon in sketches, studying how sunlight split through droplets or prisms to color walls with quiet majesty. Even today, architects and interior designers consider window placement and reflective surfaces, knowing that such ephemeral touches can subtly alter mood, inviting calm reflection or gentle delight. Imagine tracing the soft, arching patterns across a tabletop, noticing how the reds and oranges linger longer than blues and greens, how the edges blend into one another as if painting themselves anew each moment. The room itself seems touched by something private and gentle, a quiet blessing unnoticed by anyone not paying attention. You can feel your thoughts drift along these arcs, slowed and softened by the fragile light, reminded that not all beauty requires reason. Sometimes, it simply exists, shaping perception and soothing the mind almost imperceptibly, one fleeting rainbow at a time. Imagine yourself seated in a quiet room, absorbed in thought or simply resting, when a sudden draft brushes against the nape of your neck. The sensation is fleeting, yet it triggers an almost immediate reaction, a subtle tensing of shoulders, a slight tilt of the head, a momentary heightening of awareness. Instinct responds before reason, a primal acknowledgement that the environment has shifted, that something unexpected has arrived. The chill carries no words, yet it communicates urgency, caution, a quiet invitation to assess and adapt. Throughout history, humans have relied on such subtle cues to navigate the world safely. In drafty medieval halls, where stone walls held both warmth and sudden cold, occupants learned to read the movement of air, adjusting posture and positioning to maintain comfort and alertness. Nomads on open plains gauged wind shifts for approaching storms or distant fires. Even in modern architecture, the placement of windows, vents, and doors shapes experience almost imperceptibly. A sudden rush of air can influence attention, posture, and even mood, reminding us that bodies remain intimately linked to environmental flow. Physiologists explain this response as part of the body's unconscious vigilance system. Nerve endings detect temperature changes instantly. Muscles contract reflexively. Blood flow subtly adjusts. Psychologists note that such microsensations also influence perception of trust and safety. A chill against bare skin, unexpected and unannounced, creates a brief moment of hesitation, a pause to evaluate surroundings. It is a reminder that even in familiar spaces, the body monitors, anticipates, and reacts. As you imagine the sensation now, notice the delicate interplay between external stimulus and internal response. The draft is fleeting, yet its effect lingers in posture, in awareness, in the quiet recalibration of instinct. In this subtle dialogue between body and environment, you become conscious of a rhythm often overlooked: the silent guidance of air, the whisper of movement, and the instinctive balance it imposes on presence, trust, and attention, even in the most ordinary of moments. A small irritation can be enormous in its effect, and nothing demonstrates this more subtly than the scratch of fabric against skin. Imagine yourself sitting in a quiet room, the gentle sway of your body against a chair, the hum of distant activity outside, and beneath your awareness, the coarse edge of a sleeve, collar, or blanket brushing against you. It is barely noticed at first, a whisper against attention, yet it accumulates, threading through thought and emotion, nudging mood downward before the mind fully registers its presence. Humans have long contended with these quiet annoyances. In centuries past, clothing was often stiff, heavy, or layered, with wool, linen, or rough-spun threads that pressed against skin for hours. Monks in cold monasteries, laborers in sun-baked fields, and aristocrats in silk-lined gowns alike experienced the subtle tyranny of tactile discomfort. Even slight abrasions shaped behavior. Movements became cautious, posture adjusted, attention drifted, and the mind learned to accommodate irritation silently. In modern times, we may forget how profoundly touch shapes thought, yet the principle remains. The smallest abrasion or itch can guide focus, divert energy, and influence perception without ceremony or warning. Consider the psychology of this effect. Unlike pain or sound, tactile irritation is intimate yet understated, a constant companion to conscious thought. The mind attempts to integrate it, sometimes magnifying it, sometimes ignoring it, but always registering it. The scratch of fabric becomes a rhythm, irregular and unpredictable, threading through reflection, subtly accelerating fatigue, impatience, or distraction. Imagine sitting still, trying to read, think, or rest. Each movement of the material, each brush against sensitive skin, is a quiet insistence, shaping awareness and shifting attention imperceptibly. The experience is universal, yet intensely personal, a reminder that the mind is tethered not only to grand events or deliberate stimuli, but to the delicate, almost invisible textures of daily life, to threads, fibers, and the faint but persistent insistence of material reality pressing against consciousness. Imagine sitting in a dimly lit room, the steady rhythm of a single droplet breaking the silence. The sound is soft at first, almost inconsequential, yet impossible to ignore. Each drop lands in its small pool, echoing faintly against porcelain or metal. Your body notices before your mind can label it. The pulse quickens slightly, shoulders tighten, a subtle tension that grows almost imperceptibly. There is a strange patience in listening, a test imposed by nature's insistence, by water's quiet insistence, drop after drop. Throughout history, humans have been attuned to such minute signals. In ancient households, the sound of water, trickling from a roof, through stone channels, or from a ceramic jug, was both practical and symbolic. Leaks warned of structural weakness, shifting tides of moisture that might undermine walls or foundations. Monks in cloisters sometimes used the cadence of dripping water as a metronome for meditation, allowing the mind to settle, to measure time without the intrusion of speech or motion. Even in modern homes, the hidden drip persists, whether from a faucet, pipe, or condensation forming on a ceiling. The sound itself remains constant, indifferent to human irritation or observation, marking the passage of time one tiny beat at a time. Imagine yourself leaning into the rhythm, noting the metallic tinkle, the faint scent of dampness in the air, the coolness that gathers on the skin in proximity to the leak. Each drop is a whisper of persistence, a quiet negotiation between patience and irritation, between attention and distraction. Your mind may wander, but the body holds the tempo, registering the world not in moments but in droplets. In this hidden persistence, patience is both tested and trained, subtle as it is inevitable, drop by drop. Imagine yourself stepping into sunlight, the air gentle against your skin, and the warmth spreading slowly, almost imperceptibly, through your arms and shoulders. It is not overwhelming. It does not demand attention. Yet, with each passing moment, you feel a subtle shift within, a quiet lifting, a soft expansion of awareness. Light has a curious influence. The exposure of skin to the sun triggers chemical responses in the body, releasing serotonin and calming tension, almost as if the world itself is aligning with your inner rhythm. Throughout history, humans have sought sunlight not only for survival but for its quiet, restorative power. In ancient Mediterranean cultures, citizens would rise with the sun, walking through plazas and along stone pathways, their faces and arms catching the early rays. Imagine yourself among them, the warmth brushing your skin, the scent of herbs and dust in the air, the low murmur of life unfolding around you. Each small exposure is measured, an intuitive understanding that sunlight shapes mood, awareness, and vitality. Even in modern life, when sunlight slips through windows or over office partitions, the effect persists. A brief moment of warmth on skin can steady thought, ease tension, and offer a gentle anchor in the flow of daily hours. Imagine yourself pausing by a window, letting the glow touch your arms, shoulders, and face, noticing how thoughts soften, breathing deepens, and perception subtly expands. The sun, ever present and unhurried, reminds us that even the simplest interaction with nature, its warmth resting lightly upon the body, can recalibrate mood, fostering calm, quiet reflection, and a sense of ease that lingers long after the moment has passed. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet room, feeling the floor beneath your feet. At first, everything seems ordinary, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, you sense a subtle tilt. Ancient builders understood that even the gentlest slope could alter movement, subtly influencing how people walked, how furniture settled, and how the body balanced itself. In Japanese tea houses, floors were deliberately constructed with slight inclines to encourage mindful steps, an unnoticed rhythm that guided attention inward. Architects throughout history have debated the effects of floor angles, recognizing that our bodies respond to even minor shifts. Medieval stone halls, worn uneven by centuries of footsteps, created slight imbalances that visitors adapted to unconsciously, adjusting posture and gait with each step. Sailors on wooden ships, too, relied on constant micro-adjustments to maintain stability, the tilting deck shaping coordination and alertness almost without awareness. Imagine walking across such a floor, toes pressing lightly, heels responding to the imperceptible gradient. The mind, sensing change where vision might not, subtly corrects and adapts, creating a quiet, continuous engagement with space. Even when seated, the body registers the incline, weight shifting minutely, reminding the nervous system of balance and stability. The room, through this slight tilt, becomes more than static structure. It interacts with perception, shaping awareness and bodily response in ways often unnoticed. This gentle, continuous dialogue between body and floor reminds you that even imperceptible changes can guide rhythm and attention, grounding presence while inviting subtle, almost hypnotic awareness. Imagine yourself standing by an open window or walking past a familiar street when the aroma of cooking reaches you. It drifts invisibly, yet unmistakably, curling into memory, pulling at emotions with a subtle insistence. A simmering stew, the fragrant sharpness of sautéed garlic, or the warm sweetness of baked bread. Each scent carries a story, a quiet echo of domestic rhythm, of hands moving steadily through daily ritual. The smell of cooking can create an immediate sense of warmth, as though you are welcomed into a space you have never physically entered, or it can stir longing, reminding you of meals once shared, places once visited, or moments now past. Across cultures and centuries, the scent of food has played a role far beyond nourishment. In medieval villages, market aromas told tales of seasonal abundance or scarcity. Fresh herbs, roasted meats, and simmering grains marked cycles of labor and celebration. In cities of the Ottoman Empire, street vendors' wafts of spiced delicacies threaded through narrow alleys, signaling trade, community, and social connection. Even in early modern Europe, the smell of baking bread or roasting chestnuts became part of the collective rhythm, linking households and neighborhoods through shared sensory experience. Psychologists explain why these scents resonate so deeply. Olfactory signals connect directly to the limbic system, the area of the brain associated with memory and emotion, making aromas particularly potent triggers of nostalgia, comfort, or desire. A simple fragrance can shift mood, evoke familiarity, or open the imagination to unseen kitchens and untold stories. As you imagine the aroma now, notice the subtle warmth it imparts, the mental images it conjures, the gentle pull of memory intertwined with sensory experience. In this quiet interplay of smell and mind, cooking becomes more than sustenance. It becomes a bridge between spaces, people, and times. Each aroma threads through walls and streets, linking presence to absence, memory to imagination, and momentary perception to a deeper, enduring sense of connection. Even without tasting, the invisible trail of a simmering meal invites reflection, comfort, and a subtle meditation on the everyday rituals that shape life and memory. Windows frame more than views. They shape perception, mood, and even thought. Imagine yourself standing before a tall, expansive window, light pouring in, walls dissolving into sky or garden. The room feels larger, more open. Your attention drifts outward, embracing horizons that promise curiosity, reflection, or quiet daydreams. Tall windows invite exploration of both space and imagination, encouraging the mind to expand, to consider possibilities beyond the immediate. In history, grand halls and libraries often employed tall, arched windows for this very reason, flooding interiors with light and creating a sense of scale that lifts not only the body but the mind. Now imagine a narrow, slit-like window, high above the floor, sunlight limited, the view restricted to a mere fragment of the outside world. The same room transforms. The mind tightens, attention constricts, a subtle claustrophobia creeping into awareness. Medieval chambers, prison cells, and early urban homes often featured such windows, partly for structural reasons, partly for security, and partly as a quiet regulator of experience. In these spaces, inhabitants moved cautiously, focused inward, their thoughts compressed alongside the limited light. The window becomes a silent moderator, shaping perspective, subtly guiding behavior, and influencing mood without conscious instruction. The psychology is intuitive yet profound. Open windows encourage reflection and mental spaciousness. Narrow windows demand focus and inward orientation. Imagine sitting in one or the other. In the tall window's embrace, your gaze wanders freely, tracing clouds or rooftops, and your thoughts drift, weaving connections, memories, and imaginings. In the narrow window's shadow, your mind contracts, each breath and movement measured, attention drawn to the immediate, the tactile, the confined. The experience is both physical and cognitive, a reminder that the spaces we inhabit, walls, light, openings, shape consciousness in subtle, unspoken ways. Windows, like doors and ceilings, silently instruct the mind. Some invite expansion, others containment, and each frames not just the world outside, but the inner landscapes we navigate every day. Imagine standing in a quiet village as the late afternoon sun begins to dip behind tiled roofs. From somewhere beyond the trees, a bell tolls, its sound carried across lanes and fields, distant but unmistakable. Each chime vibrates through the air, brushing against windows, settling softly in your chest. It is not merely a signal of hours past, but a marker of presence, of rhythm, of shared life. Long before the mind labels the moment, the body remembers, the gentle reverberation grounding awareness, connecting thought to place, to time, to the steady flow of daily life. Church bells have been instruments of both function and memory for centuries. In medieval Europe, townsfolk relied on them to call laborers from the fields, announce markets, and mark prayer times. The peal became a temporal anchor. Even if one was far from the chapel, the sound stitched the day together, linking individuals into communal patterns. Across cultures, similar practices emerged. Temple gongs, pagoda bells, and distant call to prayer tones acted in the same way, embedding attention in the present while evoking familiarity and reassurance. Imagine yourself hearing these chimes in solitude, noting the subtle layering of echoes as they fade into rooftops and trees. The air might carry a hint of smoke from a hearth or the faint rustle of leaves, reinforcing the moment's texture. Each note resonates with history, memory, and rhythm, grounding thought gently yet insistently. Even if hours pass and no one is near, the sound persists, shaping perception, connecting awareness to a larger world. The distant bell reminds us that time is both fluid and anchored, that memory is rooted in sound, and that the rhythm of daily life, quiet and enduring, continues whether we notice or not. Imagine yourself seated near a small fire, the room dim except for the warm glow dancing across walls and floor. Shadows stretch and bend, moving in patterns that are never quite predictable, yet never threatening. The flicker of flame has a quiet authority, reaching deep into ancient pathways of the mind, calming areas of thought that predate language and reason. Even before you recognize it consciously, your breathing slows, and awareness begins to soften, attuned to rhythm and movement rather than sound or speech. Firelight has guided humans for millennia, from the first hearths of prehistoric dwellings to the flickering torches of medieval halls. Imagine yourself in a stone cave, smoke curling upward, the scent of wood and earth mixing in the air. Early humans gathered close, eyes drawn to each movement, hearts synchronized to the pulse of the flames. Stories unfolded here, quietly, as eyes traced shadows on walls and bodies shared the warmth of proximity. The flicker served as a lullaby for the mind, a gentle companion, shaping alertness and calm, teaching the subtle art of attention and relaxation simultaneously. Even today, the simple presence of fire can evoke this deep familiarity. In fireplaces, candles, or campfires, the same primal effect persists. Imagine yourself leaning back, letting the warmth brush your skin, the soft crackle punctuating the quiet, shadows moving in gentle arcs. Each flicker draws you inward, yet outward in awareness at the same time, as your mind settles into a state both alert and restful. In this timeless exchange, firelight reminds us of a connection to human history, a bridge between body, mind, and the subtle rhythms of nature, coaxing thought toward reflection, calm, and gentle repose. Imagine yourself reaching for a door, your hand brushing against the metal handle, and feeling a sudden, unexpected chill. The coldness travels instantly, a subtle shock that catches attention before thought can respond. In historical homes, handles made of brass or iron often absorbed the chill of early mornings, the lingering cold reminding inhabitants of the passage of night into day. Even today, the sensation is familiar. Cold metal against warm skin jolts perception, sharpening awareness for a fleeting moment, a small interruption in the otherwise quiet rhythm of daily life. Throughout centuries, people noted these moments, often linking them to memory and ritual. In European manor houses, servants would pause, noting the bite of a frozen latch, while families moving through drafty corridors adapted unconsciously, adjusting their pace or grip. Writers and philosophers have reflected on such small sensory events, recognizing that a chill at the fingertips can precede recognition, decision, or hesitation, as if the body signals comprehension before the mind articulates it. Imagine yourself grasping the handle slowly, noticing the contrast of warmth and cold, the subtle tingle traveling up your arm. The room itself seems to react, the temperature of surfaces shaping mood, perception, and even thought. In these brief moments, the cold handle becomes a quiet teacher, guiding attention, creating pause, and reminding you that even the simplest objects carry influence over consciousness. Awareness flickers gently, thoughts adjust almost imperceptibly, and the mind, nudged by a small chill, settles back into reflection and calm, carrying the sensation like a whisper into the next moment. Imagine yourself moving through a quiet space, fingertips grazing the surfaces around you. A wall rises to meet your touch, and the texture communicates silently, immediately shaping perception. Smooth plaster, cool and even under your hand, offers comfort, a subtle reassurance that the space is controlled, refined, and deliberate. Rough stone or uneven brick, by contrast, invites attention, a quiet caution. The irregularities catch on fingertips, compelling awareness, stirring a sense of unpredictability, and shifting posture and movement in ways almost imperceptible. Throughout history, wall textures have communicated more than utility. They have conveyed social status, regional identity, and even psychological influence. In medieval castles, polished stone or carefully plastered walls marked chambers of importance, reinforcing hierarchy through tactile sensation. Homes in rural villages used roughly hewn timber or mud plaster, their uneven surfaces a testament to labor and resource constraints, yet resonant with the rhythm of daily life. In urban architecture, smooth painted surfaces were often associated with civility and refinement, while textured finishes, stucco, brick reliefs, carved motifs, offered sensory variety, shaping the experience of those passing by or inhabiting the spaces within. Psychologists and designers note that tactile perception subtly guides emotional response. Touching a surface activates nerve endings, providing feedback that influences comfort, attention, and even trust in a space. Smooth surfaces relax the mind, encouraging stillness, while roughness heightens awareness, prompting caution or curiosity. The effect is quiet, almost unnoticed, yet persistent, linking body and environment in a dialogue of sensation. As you imagine your fingers brushing walls now, notice the nuanced conversation between touch and perception. Each ridge, each polish, each imperfection conveys information, shapes posture, and engages thought. In these subtle tactile exchanges, the simplest act, running your hand along a wall, becomes a meditation on environment, memory, and presence, revealing how profoundly even texture can influence the rhythm of daily life, the comfort of space, and the quiet attentiveness of the senses. The first drops of rain strike the warm concrete, releasing a scent that is both immediate and elusive. Imagine yourself standing on a city street, the air thick with humidity, the sharp tang of wet stone rising to meet you. This urban petrichor is different from the smell of soil in a forest. It carries with it the tension between nature and human creation, a quiet reminder that life continues in layers, both organic and constructed. The scent triggers memory almost involuntarily. You recall childhood streets, the rhythm of raindrops on pavement, the hurried steps of passers-by, the distant hum of engines softened by moisture. Yet in the same moment, it reminds you of neon reflections, asphalt expanses, and modern structures pressing against the sky. Nostalgia entwined with the present, intimate and impersonal at once. Humans have long been sensitive to this subtle aroma. Before modern cityscapes, rain on clay or stone suggested growth, fertility, and the cyclical rhythm of seasons. In urban environments, the same phenomenon shifts perception. Concrete, tar, and brick interact with rainfall to release volatile compounds, and the brain interprets them not only as scent but as an emotional landscape. Writers, poets, and city dwellers have noted this duality. The smell evokes comfort and melancholy simultaneously, grounding one in personal memory while highlighting the artificial contours of contemporary life. Consider the psychology of this experience. Each inhale carries fragments of memory and sensory data. A street corner in childhood, a cafe doorway in adolescence, the metallic tang of pipes and pavement in the present. The scent acts as a bridge between times, a cue that merges private experience with the collective, unspoken rhythm of the city. Imagine walking slowly through this damp environment. Puddles reflect the distorted shapes of streetlights, footsteps echo in wet corridors, and your mind drifts freely, tracing patterns between memory and observation. Urban petrichor is subtle, yet it commands attention, inviting reflection without demand. It reminds you that even in the constructed world, nature persists in small, fragrant gestures, shaping awareness, mood, and memory as effortlessly as the passage of time itself. Imagine sitting quietly, the room hushed, when suddenly a dog barks in the distance or an owl calls from a nearby tree. The sound arrives abruptly, sharp yet fleeting, cutting through the rhythm of calm. Your body responds before your mind can name the source. Muscles tense slightly, ears turn, breath adjusts. Attention shifts, drawn by instinct, by the awareness that something has moved, something has spoken. Even the tiniest rustle in the underbrush or the subtle snap of a branch can register, unnoticed by logic at first, yet fully present in your senses. Humans have evolved to respond to such sounds for survival. In ancient settlements, an unexpected animal noise could indicate danger, marking the approach of a predator or signaling the movement of livestock. Early humans learned to distinguish the subtle tonal differences between a call of warning and a simple nocturnal murmur. Across cultures, animal sounds shaped the rhythm of daily life. The crowing of roosters, the bark of guard dogs, or the cry of night birds all acted as markers, a way to structure activity, to prepare the body for action, or to settle the mind into attentive stillness. Imagine yourself noticing the distant call, the texture of air around you, the faint vibration of sound through wood or stone. The mind may wander, tracing patterns of animals unseen, recalling familiar walks, or evoking childhood memories of quiet nights. Yet the body remembers first, attuned to cues older than memory itself. In these sudden sounds, instinct and reflection meet, a reminder that the world carries itself with its own rhythm. Even a single bark or hoot can momentarily tilt perception, shifting awareness, grounding attention, and connecting us subtly to the pulse of life beyond our walls. Imagine yourself entering a quiet room, the bed neatly made, sheets soft under gentle lighting. You pause, noting the direction it faces. There is a subtle instinct embedded deep within you. Beds aligned toward the doorway evoke a sense of safety, even if the mind cannot articulate why. Ancient instincts, honed over millennia, respond to the arrangement of space, sensing potential pathways of movement, possible threats, and routes of escape. Your body relaxes when the bed aligns with the entrance, shoulders loosening, breathing slowing, heart rate settling into a rhythm barely noticeable, yet profoundly real. Throughout human history, the orientation of sleeping areas has been observed and debated. In medieval homes, beds were often placed with care, near windows or doorways, balancing light, airflow, and safety. Imagine yourself lying in one such chamber, torchlight flickering across timber beams, the scent of herbs preserved in the air. Occupants may not have understood the precise psychology at play, yet their arrangement reflects an intuitive understanding of comfort, vigilance, and subconscious reassurance. Facing the door, they slept lightly but with ease, the mind recognizing an openness to potential changes in the environment. Even today, in modern bedrooms, subtle effects persist. People often choose beds that allow a view of the entrance, sometimes unconsciously, guided by these primal instincts. Imagine yourself lying back, feeling the mattress cradle your body, gaze able to sweep the room. The brain registers the openness, the absence of obstruction, and allows rest to deepen. The alignment of your bed becomes a quiet mediator between security and ease, shaping the rhythm of sleep, the subtle patterns of alertness, and the gentle unfolding of subconscious calm. It is a reminder that even the simplest choices in space carry echoes of ancient understanding, shaping comfort and peace in ways rarely recognized. Imagine yourself stepping into a quiet room, feeling the surface beneath your feet. Bare skin meets wood or stone directly, softening thought, slowing the rhythm of movement. Across centuries, cultures have noted this subtle influence. In traditional Japanese homes, the ritual of removing shoes before entering was not just cleanliness, but a way to invite calm, a pause in the mind's activity. The body, unencumbered by soles, senses texture, temperature, and contour, translating these impressions into a quiet grounding of awareness. Conversely, shoes maintain a protective barrier, a separation from the floor that subtly heightens alertness. In European households of the 18th century, stiff-soled footwear indoors signaled formality, encouraging upright posture and measured movement. Even without conscious thought, the body remains primed, muscles engaged, mind attentive. Workers, visitors, or family members adjusted their pace instinctively, responding to the firmness beneath them, a small but persistent signal that demanded readiness. Imagine the contrast. Bare feet sliding softly over worn floorboards, toes curling over small imperfections, each step a meditation in sensation. Shoes, in comparison, create a rhythm of contact and resistance, reminding the mind that motion carries consequence, that attention matters. The simple act of footwear, or its absence, guides cognition and bodily awareness, shaping thought as naturally as light shapes a room. In these quiet, overlooked details, daily life is subtly orchestrated, the body and mind tuned to textures and pressures, learning from surfaces and allowing consciousness to drift or remain poised, almost imperceptibly, with every step. Imagine yourself entering a room dimly lit by a single candle or a small cluster of them. The flame wavers gently, its light curling across walls, furniture, and familiar objects, casting shadows that stretch and dance in quiet rhythm. There is a softness in this illumination, an intimacy that fluorescent or electric light rarely achieves. The flicker cradles your attention without demanding it, allowing thoughts to settle, reflections to surface, and mental tempo to slow in a way that is both unforced and inevitable. Throughout human history, the glow of candles has served not merely as a source of light, but as a mediator of perception and thought. In medieval monasteries, monks relied on the steady flame to illuminate manuscripts, the soft radiance creating an environment conducive to contemplation and study. Candlelight in Renaissance parlors shaped the ambience of conversation, subtly influencing tone, pacing, and emotional openness. Even in households of the early modern era, the presence of candles transformed evening routines. Tasks were performed with a gentle attentiveness, meals were shared with quiet attention, and stories unfolded with a deliberate cadence shaped by the flickering glow. Psychologists and neuroscientists note that low, dynamic light like candlelight encourages relaxation, engaging the parasympathetic nervous system and reducing the constant stimulation that modern lighting often imposes. The eyes adjust, pupils widen, and the brain perceives each movement with heightened sensitivity, fostering awareness without urgency. Thoughts meander more freely, memories surface with clarity, and a subtle meditative state can emerge, even in ordinary surroundings. As you imagine this now, notice how the flame draws your gaze and yet allows you to look inward simultaneously. Each flicker marks a pause, each shadow a gentle cue to slow. In this quiet interplay of light and perception, the candle becomes more than illumination. It becomes a guide, a companion, a bridge between external space and inner reflection, inviting you to inhabit the present moment with calm attention, awareness, and subtle, restorative stillness. Carpets are more than floor coverings. They are subtle influencers of perception, mood, and thought. Imagine walking into a room with a deep red carpet, its fibers absorbing light yet radiating warmth. The color stirs energy, a quiet stimulation that moves through the senses without ceremony. Each step feels slightly invigorated, the mind alert to movement, gesture, and detail. Historically, rich reds were chosen for royal halls, palaces, and grand libraries, not simply for aesthetics, but for their ability to command presence, focus, and attention. The red carpet has long carried symbolic weight, signaling status, ceremony, and vitality, quietly shaping the atmosphere and the behavior of those who traverse it. Now imagine a room adorned with a blue carpet, from soft sky tones to deep indigos. The effect is profoundly different. Blue invites calm, focus, and contemplation. Feet press into fibers as if cushioned by serenity itself. Studies in psychology show that cool colors reduce stress and promote stillness, and interior design has long used them in bedrooms, meditation spaces, and libraries to facilitate reflection. The mind relaxes, breathing slows, and attention drifts toward observation rather than action. In this quiet shift, the carpet shapes experience almost invisibly, guiding perception through subtle chromatic influence. Grays, conversely, tell a different story. Neutral and muted, they can evoke stability, yet overabundance risks melancholy. Imagine walking across a slate-gray floor in a dimly lit room. The air feels heavier, thoughts more constrained, energy subdued. The color becomes a silent companion, shaping awareness and emotional tone, a reminder that our environment continuously dialogues with our inner life. Carpets, though fixed and silent, are active participants in the architecture of mood. Their color, texture, and placement interact with light, sound, and memory to sculpt experience. Each step, each glance, is a subtle conversation between perception and environment, guiding how we move, think, and feel, without words, without instruction, quietly, persistently shaping the rhythm of the spaces we inhabit. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, sunlight falling gently on a worn wooden desk. A book rests open before you, its pages waiting. As one page turns, a soft rustle fills the space, delicate and fleeting, almost a whisper. The sound carries a subtle weight, familiar yet intimate, and your body notices before your mind fully registers. Shoulders ease, your breathing slows, and attention drifts into the gentle rhythm of movement and stillness. Each page turned becomes a marker of thought, a moment held briefly in your senses before passing into memory. For centuries, the sound of pages has accompanied reflection and learning. Monks in medieval scriptoriums moved their hands carefully across parchment, the gentle turning punctuating hours of copying texts. Scholars in candlelit studies felt the same quiet intimacy, the tactile rhythm of paper or vellum linking mind and hand. Even the modern turning of printed pages evokes this connection, bridging centuries and spaces. Libraries and private studies alike carry the echoes of these whispers, a chorus of curiosity and contemplation sustained across time. Imagine yourself leaning into the sound, the crisp edge of paper brushing fingertips, the faint scent of ink and fiber mingling with the quiet of the room. The world outside fades slightly, yet awareness remains gentle and present. The whispers of pages do not command thought, they cradle it, supporting reflection and calm. They remind us that stillness can be active, that attention can wander without urgency, and that each small sound carries history, intimacy, and the quiet rhythm of human experience. In this soft, rustling cadence, the mind finds a lullaby in the simplest of movements. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, the gentle whirl of a ceiling fan above casting shadows across the walls. The air moves steadily, brushing your skin with soft repetition, and with it comes a subtle sound, a low, constant hum that fills the space without demand. The rhythm is unchanging, predictable, almost hypnotic. It settles the mind, each rotation a quiet reassurance that the world continues in a measured, familiar way. The hum of fans has accompanied human activity for decades. In early mechanical times, hand-cranked or electric fans offered relief from heat, while also creating this steady auditory backdrop. Imagine yourself in a sunlit room in the 1930s, curtains stirring lightly, a metal fan oscillating across the corner. Workers, students, or readers pause, noticing the calm insistence of the sound, the almost imperceptible vibration in the air, a quiet partner to focus or relaxation. The soundscape is consistent, neither intrusive nor demanding, yet shaping attention and awareness at a subtle level. Even today, in modern bedrooms and offices, the effect persists. Fans, ceiling, table, or portable, provide a continuous tonal blanket that softens the edges of thought. Imagine yourself lying back, eyes half closed, feeling the gentle rotation of air, listening to the steady hum. The mind begins to drift, following the repetition, its pathways smoothing, thoughts slowing. In this simple interaction between air, motion, and sound, the fan orchestrates a quiet lullaby for the senses, demonstrating that even mechanical motion, mundane in its origin, can become a companion for calm, a gentle mediator between wakefulness and rest. Imagine yourself in a quiet room where all the windows remain closed. The air is still, carrying subtle warmth or lingering coolness, but moving nowhere. Over time, a heaviness builds, almost imperceptibly, seeping into thought and energy. Historical records from medieval households describe similar observations. Rooms left shuttered for days became slow to inhabit, servants and residents moving sluggishly, conversations lagging, minds dulled by the stagnant atmosphere. Air, like a river, brings life, even in small spaces. Without it, the rhythm of thought adjusts, slowing almost without awareness. In early modern studies of ventilation, physicians noted that poorly aired chambers produced drowsiness, mild irritability, and reduced focus. Scholars, writers, and artisans observed that creativity faltered when rooms lacked circulation. Imagine the curtains barely stirring, dust motes hanging in lazy arcs, sunlight filtered yet dimmed by closed panes. The body notices the subtle shift first, a dry throat, a slight heaviness in the chest, a gentle tightening of muscles. Then the mind follows, attention softening as if the room itself is breathing less, asking for stillness in return. Opening a window transforms the subtle stagnation instantly. The entrance of fresh air, carrying scents of rain, grass, or urban life, invigorates thought before it can be fully registered. Imagine yourself moving toward the pane, feeling the cool rush against your skin, energy flowing back in quiet increments. Even unnoticed, the state of the windows shapes the rhythm of life, guiding awareness, mood, and mental clarity with a delicacy that is rarely acknowledged but always present. Imagine yourself walking through a city street at night, where the faint glare of neon signs bathes walls, windows, and sidewalks in electric hues of pink, blue, and green. The light is sharp, almost piercing in its intensity, and it commands attention even when you are trying to look elsewhere. Your eyes adjust, yet the vibrancy resists softening, holding thought and perception in a heightened state. Neon colors seem to sharpen mental focus, making details stand out, contours more precise, edges more rigid, yet this clarity comes at a subtle cost. The calm that settles in dim, natural lighting is harder to achieve here. Instead, there is a restless energy, a faint tension that moves through muscles and pulse, registering almost subliminally. Since the invention of neon lighting in the early 20th century, these artificial glows have been both celebrated and critiqued. In urban centers like Paris, Berlin, and Tokyo, neon signs became symbols of modernity, nightlife, and progress, shaping the experience of the city itself. Artists and photographers noted the way neon altered perception of space, giving streets an otherworldly vibrancy while simultaneously erasing subtle nuances found in shadow and natural light. Similarly, psychologists studying environmental perception observed that bright, artificial light can accelerate alertness, influence mood, and even subtly interfere with circadian rhythms, keeping the mind awake long after the body signals rest. As you imagine this now, notice how the faint neon glow draws attention to the world in precise, almost clinical strokes, sharpening thought yet diminishing the soft edges of calm. The air, the texture of walls, the hum of traffic, everything becomes more immediate, more defined, less forgiving to the wandering mind. In this tension between clarity and repose, you sense a subtle paradox. Neon illuminates, energizes, and awakens awareness, yet it quietly suppresses the gentle rhythm of reflection, leaving the mind alert while the body longs for pause. The soft rustle of clothing is one of those unnoticed sounds that shape perception more than we realize. Imagine yourself sitting in a quiet room, the faint friction of fabric as you shift, stretch, or cross your legs. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it communicates a sense of presence, movement, and texture. The sound alone can alter comfort, mood, or attention, without a single word being spoken. A flowing silk gown whispers differently than a stiff wool coat. Each fabric carries its own acoustic signature, its own rhythm that interacts with the environment and with the listener's awareness. Throughout history, humans have been attuned to these cues. In crowded ballrooms, whispered fabrics signaled status, proximity, and intent. Monks in linen habits adjusted silently to the subtle noises of their robes, attuning their movements to avoid distraction or disruption. Even today, the rustle of clothing can provoke feelings of intimacy, tension, or ease, guiding perception quietly but insistently. The sound of material moving against itself or against furniture conveys a narrative of its own. Who is present, how they move, and how the environment responds. Consider the psychology of this effect. Unlike voices or music, fabric sounds are indirect. They do not demand attention, but they anchor it. The brain interprets them as cues of space and motion, mapping the position of bodies, the pace of actions, and the comfort of surroundings. Imagine walking through a hallway lined with others, your own clothing brushing with each step. The rustle merges with ambient noises, influencing your awareness of rhythm, proximity, and even emotion. It can soothe, reassure, or subtly irritate, depending on context and mood. The effect is almost hypnotic, a gentle reminder that the world communicates not only through words or gestures, but through texture and sound, through the quiet movement of fabric that both contains and shapes experience. In this way, the rustle of clothing is an invisible dialogue, a soft orchestration of sensation and attention that accompanies human life in ways we rarely notice, yet always perceive. Imagine your fingers brushing against a smooth metal surface, a doorknob, a railing, or a forgotten spoon on the counter. The contact is brief, but the coldness registers immediately, sharp yet subtle, awakening senses that had been quietly settled. There is an instinctive pause, a slight tightening of muscles, a gentle shift in posture, as though the body senses caution before the mind has fully understood why. The chill travels through the skin, tracing a path of attention along your fingertips, reminding you that every material has its own language, its own silent message. Metal has long carried significance in human experience. Ancient tools and weapons were crafted from iron, bronze, and steel, and their touch was intertwined with awareness of utility, danger, or power. Knights grasped cold swords with careful intent. Artisans held chisels and hammers with precise control, each contact demanding respect. Even in domestic life, the smooth, cool feel of utensils, locks, or hinges carries a vestige of this instinctual alertness. The body remembers what the mind may overlook, sensing the solidity and temperature of objects as cues to action or restraint. Imagine yourself tracing the edges of a metal object, noticing how the coolness spreads, contrasting with the warmth of surrounding skin. The mind may wander, recalling workshops, kitchens, or forgotten streets lined with iron gates, yet the body remains anchored in the present moment. Cold metal speaks quietly, shaping caution without words, adjusting awareness through tactile memory. Each touch becomes a subtle dialogue, a reminder that our environment communicates in textures and temperatures, that even the simplest contact carries a depth of sensation and reflection. In this quiet awareness, the ordinary becomes profound, and the coldness of metal guides attention with gentle insistence. Imagine yourself seated near a window, the glass cool against your fingertips, and beyond it stretches a quiet array of trees. Leaves sway gently in the breeze, light shifting across branches, patterns forming and dissolving in ways that feel both orderly and unpredictable. Even a brief glimpse of this greenery begins to slow the rhythm of thought, easing tension, lowering cortisol, and offering a subtle invitation to calm. The mind notices the shade of green, the movement of leaves, the quiet consistency of growth, responding even when your focus is only partial, only fleeting. Throughout human history, proximity to trees and green spaces has shaped lives, rituals, and health in ways often unspoken. Imagine yourself in a small village, morning light spilling through orchards, dew clinging to leaves, villagers pausing to breathe in the forested air as they begin their work. Gardens and groves were not merely decorative, they offered rest, reflection, and a gentle resetting of the senses. The patterns of light and shadow, the rustle of foliage, and the subtle fragrances all contributed to a quiet orchestration of mood and mental clarity. Even in contemporary life, glimpses of trees through office windows or city parks carry the same effect. Imagine yourself leaning slightly forward, noticing the shifting canopy outside, sunlight scattering across leaves, wind creating soft murmurs in the branches. You do not need to walk among them. The simple observation suffices to recalibrate thought, to invite reflection, to soften tension. The trees become silent companions, teaching the mind to follow cycles of growth and movement, reminding you that even brief encounters with nature can shape perception, guide mood, and ease the gentle unfolding of time within your own awareness. Imagine yourself sitting at a desk, the sound of fingers striking keys filling the quiet room. Each tap, crisp and mechanical, punctuates thought before it is fully formed, accelerating ideas into urgent patterns. In the early days of typewriters, office workers noticed the same phenomenon. The rhythmic clatter pushed focus forward, shaping the tempo of correspondence and dictation. Even the fastest typists adapted their attention to the percussion, thoughts unfolding in lockstep with the machine. Writers and scholars of the 20th century observed how the sound of writing, mechanical or analog, could heighten mental alertness. Each key became a small drumbeat, marking the passage of time and pace of cognition. Imagine the variation in tone, hard strikes echoing across a wooden desk, soft touches barely whispering, yet all influencing how quickly ideas coalesced. The brain responds subtly. Urgency rises almost unnoticed, fingers moving faster, thoughts racing to match the rhythm. Consider the contrast. In a silent room, ideas drift slowly, meandering through the mind. When the keyboard's clatter begins, focus sharpens, energy quickens, and the mind is pulled forward into a faster, more insistent cadence. Even minor changes in volume alter this effect. A loud, resonant tap demands attention, while a muffled strike allows for reflection. In this way, the simple act of typing shapes not only communication but cognition, guiding thought along invisible rhythms. Each keystroke nudges awareness, orchestrating the mind's pace, reminding you that sound, even small, mundane sounds, can subtly, profoundly influence the flow of thought. Imagine yourself entering a room illuminated by a single lamp or a cluster of light sources. The shape of each lamp subtly communicates mood even before the light reaches your eyes. Rounded, curving lampshades diffuse light softly, creating gentle pools of illumination that cradle the senses. Shadows fall gradually, edges blur, and the environment feels inherently welcoming, almost tactile in its calmness. In contrast, lamps with sharp angles, geometric frames, or exposed bulbs cast precise lines and stark contrasts, energizing the space and subtly heightening alertness. The difference is quiet yet persistent, shaping perception and emotional tone without any conscious effort on your part. Throughout history, the design of lamps has reflected both practical needs and psychological insight. In ancient Roman villas, oil lamps were often shallow, round, and modest, their soft glow spreading evenly across rooms and hearths, fostering calm conversation and domestic intimacy. By the 19th century, gas and early electric lamps began exploring angular designs, metal fixtures, and structured shades, deliberately emphasizing brightness, focus, and modernity. Interior designers and architects noted that lamp shape could influence behavior. Rounded, warm forms encouraged relaxation, contemplation, and leisurely activity, while angular, high-contrast lighting promoted work, study, or alert social engagement. Neuroscientists and psychologists have confirmed that curved shapes are generally perceived as safe, soothing, and comforting, while sharp angles trigger attention, vigilance, and cognitive alertness. The interplay of light and form engages the mind subtly, influencing posture, thought tempo, and emotional response. As you imagine this now, notice the way different shapes modulate attention and relaxation. The rounded lamp invites the mind to drift gently, to observe details without urgency, to allow thought to meander. The angular lamp sharpens perception, directing focus with clarity and energy. In this quiet dialogue between shape and light, the simplest act, choosing or noticing a lamp, becomes an intimate reflection on how form shapes experience, and how the design of everyday objects can guide both perception and feeling in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. The floor beneath our feet is rarely considered, yet it subtly shapes mood, perception, and the rhythm of daily life. Imagine stepping onto cold, unyielding stone. Each footfall echoes, the hardness transmitting a sense of permanence, stability, but also rigidity. Movement feels deliberate, attention sharpened, posture adjusted, as if the very material beneath you reminds the body and mind to measure each action. Historically, stone floors were common in castles, monasteries, and public halls, spaces meant to impress, to endure. The firmness conveys authority, resilience, and occasionally, distance. Walking across such surfaces can heighten awareness, yet also stiffen emotion, contracting energy and quieting the mind. Now, imagine the same room with polished wooden floors, warm beneath bare feet or lightly cushioned by rugs. Wood absorbs impact, muffles sound, and invites gentle motion. It softens both body and thought, promoting ease, reflection, and subtle comfort. Homes, studios, and intimate spaces have long favored wood for this reason, understanding instinctively that movement and mood are intertwined. Each step over a wooden floor carries the warmth of growth, the trace of time, and the resonance of life lived in softer, more flowing rhythms. The psychology of floor material is surprisingly potent. Hard surfaces heighten attention, evoke a sense of austerity, and communicate structure. Softer, organic materials reduce tension, encourage exploration, and make interaction with space feel less formal. Imagine walking barefoot across one or the other. Stone demands careful placement, wood invites wandering. Even when unnoticed consciously, your mind adjusts, senses calibrated to the subtle cues beneath you. Floors, like walls, ceilings, and furniture, participate silently in shaping experience. They guide posture, influence mood, and create an invisible dialogue with the body. In every step, the ground communicates permanence or warmth, constraint or freedom, reminding you that the spaces we inhabit are not neutral, but active participants in the shaping of thought, emotion, and perception. Imagine sitting in a quiet room, aware not of a single sound but of a soft, almost imperceptible hum in the background. It is the faint static from an old radio left on, the distant whir of an air conditioner, or the subtle vibration of electrical wiring through the walls. At first, the noise is barely noticed, blending seamlessly into the environment. Yet, over time, your senses attune to it. The body registers the constant presence before the mind even names it, a subtle shaping of comfort or unease, a rhythm that the brain absorbs silently. Background noise has always influenced human perception. In ancient times, the crackle of a hearth, the distant murmur of the river, or the rustle of leaves carried ambient information, signaling safety, change, or life. The soft, persistent sounds of a home, the ticking of a clock, footsteps in distant halls, helped anchor attention, creating subconscious cues about space, presence, and time. Even today, faint static can produce a similar effect. Some find it soothing, a reminder of continuous life beyond the immediate focus, while others feel a slight irritation, a whisper of disruption in the quiet. Imagine yourself leaning into the sensation, noting the texture of the air, the warmth or coolness of the room, the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. The mind may drift, thoughts wandering across memories, plans, or half-forgotten stories, while the body remains subtly engaged, sensing the constancy of sound. This static, so ordinary and overlooked, quietly orchestrates awareness, calibrating calm or nudging alertness without drama or urgency. In its persistent hum, there is comfort, continuity, and a hidden pulse of life, reminding you that the world is never entirely silent, and that even unnoticed sounds shape the mind and the quiet architecture of attention. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a garden or near a window at dusk, and a faint, persistent buzz reaches your ears. It is small, almost insignificant, yet it draws attention in ways that feel ancient, woven deep into human perception. The mind instinctively registers the sound, tracing it, anticipating movement, sensing potential presence beyond sight. Though no danger exists, the hum evokes a subtle vigilance, a heightened awareness that is both involuntary and calming in its own rhythm. In the earliest human environments, such sounds were signals of the natural world, alerting to the approach of insects that could sting or bite, or signaling the presence of food and water nearby. Imagine yourself on a warm, shaded plain, the scent of wildflowers mingling with sun-warmed soil, and insects weaving invisible patterns through the air. Early humans would adjust posture, shift slightly, notice the smallest movements, all while their senses absorbed the broader environment. These tiny alerts became part of a subconscious navigation system, shaping attention, caution, and a quiet adaptability that persists to this day. Even now, in modern life, the soft buzz of a mosquito, a fly, or a cicada can stir the same response, subtle but unmistakable. Imagine yourself reclining on a porch at twilight, the hum weaving through the warm air. It does not provoke panic, only awareness, a gentle tethering to the present, reminding you of the complex interplay between human perception and environment. In this minor disturbance, the mind finds a rhythm, tracing patterns, calibrating attention, and settling into a state that is alert, yet reflective, an echo of our primal connection to the sounds of the natural world, quietly shaping thought, perception, and the gentle unfolding of awareness. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, the murmur of voices drifting from nearby. At first, they are indistinct, a soft background hum, yet subtly, their pitch begins to shape your perception. High, melodic tones can lift thought, evoking a gentle alertness, while lower, muted voices draw attention inward, slowing the rhythm of cognition almost imperceptibly. Anthropologists and psychologists alike have long observed that humans respond to vocal qualities unconsciously, adjusting posture, facial expression, and even heartbeat in reflection of what they hear. In historical households, subtle variations in speech influenced social hierarchies and mood. Courtiers learned to soften tones to convey respect or urgency without words, and monks in cloisters developed measured vocal inflections that encouraged calm and reflection. The mind, listening even when not attending, decodes pitch and timbre, aligning emotional response with sound. Imagine leaning back in a chair, noticing how a nearby voice carries warmth, tension, or neutrality, influencing thought before conscious recognition. Even in everyday modern life, the tone of those around you subtly engages empathy circuits. A rising inflection might inspire curiosity, a steady low note invokes calm or authority, and shifts between the two guide reactions without deliberate thought. You can sense it in moments of conversation, in public spaces, in quiet corridors, how the sound of voices molds understanding, emotion, and attention. These imperceptible cues remind you that human perception is a constant negotiation with environment, that awareness and mood flow through sound, and that even unnoticed tonal shifts guide thought, softening or sharpening mental landscapes as gently as a breeze brushing across a still pond. Imagine yourself in a quiet space, the rhythm of your thoughts unhurried, when suddenly a door slams nearby. The sound erupts sharply, slicing through stillness, and your body responds before your mind can catch up. Heart rate quickens, shoulders tense, and the subtle release of stress hormones courses through your system. The noise is brief, but its effect lingers, a reminder of how sudden auditory events can shape perception and emotional state. Throughout history, abrupt sounds have carried practical weight as well as psychological influence. In large households of the past, heavy wooden doors were common, and a slam might signal urgency, the return of authority, or the presence of strangers. Monks in medieval abbeys noted that the closing of doors marked transitions between sacred spaces and mundane corridors, each sound influencing focus and mindfulness. Even in urban streets of the 18th and 19th centuries, the noise of closing gates or shop shutters subtly guided attention, signaling commerce, movement, or social hierarchy, often before anyone saw what had happened. Modern research confirms that sudden loud noises trigger the amygdala, the brain's rapid response center, preparing the body for fight, flight, or heightened alertness. Even a familiar environment can feel momentarily destabilized, as the mind reconciles the sudden auditory spike with expectations of calm. Interestingly, the impact of such sounds can be shaped by context. In a serene home, a door slam feels jarring and invasive, while in bustling public spaces, similar noises blend into the rhythmic hum of activity, lessening their emotional sting. As you imagine this now, notice how the mind reacts almost instinctively to abrupt sound, how attention snaps, how tension rises and slowly recedes. The slam of a door becomes more than noise. It is a reminder of the subtle ways our environment molds thought, posture, and emotional state. In these fleeting moments, you experience the intimate dialogue between body and sound, alertness and calm, and the quiet power of seemingly ordinary events to momentarily rewrite perception. Even when silent, a phone's vibration carries weight. Imagine a device resting on a wooden table, sleek and inert, yet capable of sudden tremors. A brief, almost imperceptible shiver runs through the surface. You may not consciously register it at first, yet the body and mind respond. Muscles tighten, attention flickers, and thought shifts subtly toward anticipation, expectation, or unease. The tremor is a signal, a nonverbal messenger, a reminder that communication, information, or interruption may arrive at any moment. It is a sensation that merges the physical and psychological, anchoring awareness in the present, while simultaneously stretching the imagination toward possibilities. Humans have long been sensitive to such subtle stimuli. In earlier centuries, anticipation was measured in letters or distant footsteps. Today, technology amplifies immediacy. The vibration is a modern heartbeat, irregular and unpredictable, influencing focus even when ignored. Workers, students, and families experience this daily. The tremor under a hand, the slight hum transmitted through a tabletop, is enough to shift thought patterns, alter patience, and redirect attention. Even in quiet rooms, the body responds instinctively to the presence of potential contact, anticipating messages or alerts, tuning itself to the rhythm of devices that exist simultaneously as tools and stimuli. Consider the psychology at play. Unlike sound, which can be tuned out or ignored, the tactile tremor is intimate, physical, and unavoidable. It touches nerves directly, translating uncertainty into sensation. Imagine sitting with a phone before you, the table barely moving beneath it. Each vibration becomes a ripple through awareness, subtle but persistent, influencing mood and focus without words, without commands, without intent. It reminds you that your environment, objects, surfaces, technology, interacts continuously with cognition. Awareness, patience, and attention are shaped by forces almost invisible, almost imperceptible. The vibration of a phone on a table is both signal and subtle intrusion, a gentle yet persistent nudge that shapes perception, thought, and the rhythm of experience in ways easily overlooked yet universally felt. Imagine sitting in a room where time is marked not just by the mind, but by sound. A clock ticks nearby, each click pronounced and immediate, pressing gently against your awareness. With every small motion of the hands, there is a reminder of minutes passing, tasks awaiting, life moving forward. The closeness of the clock amplifies its authority. Pressure rises subtly, a quiet insistence that seconds are counted, that the world is moving whether you act or not. Your body responds first, shoulders tensing, breath adjusting, before your mind even consciously acknowledges the source. Now, imagine stepping into a larger hall or a quiet library, where clocks are present but distant. The ticking is softened by space, absorbed by walls, carpets, and air itself. Each sound reaches you later, attenuated, less urgent, almost musical in its rhythm. Time continues, of course, but the body registers it as background, a gentle current rather than a tugging rope. Throughout history, humans have intuitively understood this relationship. Monks in medieval cloisters arranged clocks and bells to structure prayer and labor without creating anxiety. Even in modern offices, the placement of clocks affects perception. Proximity can sharpen attention or, when softened by distance, allow calm focus. Imagine yourself noticing the sound, near or far, feeling its subtle influence on thought and mood. The room, the air, the position of the clock, all shape your experience of time, blending awareness with ease or tension. In this quiet calibration, the mind learns to measure moments not only in seconds but in sensation. Distant clocks ease perception, close ones heighten alertness, and through them, the rhythm of life whispers its presence gently into your awareness. Imagine yourself standing before a window, the room quiet except for the soft whisper of fabric. You reach out and draw the curtains closed, and immediately the atmosphere changes. Light softens, edges blur, and the distant hum of the world, cars, voices, the subtle clatter of life, fades into a gentle, muted background. The heavy folds of cloth act as a barrier, not harsh or isolating, but protective, muffling external stimuli and creating a private rhythm, a space in which thought can slow and settle. For centuries, humans have understood the subtle influence of these barriers. In early domestic interiors, curtains and drapes were more than decoration. They controlled light, insulated rooms, and offered a psychological buffer. Imagine yourself in a medieval chamber, the sun streaming through high windows, casting colored patterns through tapestries. Yet when drawn, the folds absorb sound, soften shadows, and bring an almost meditative stillness. The weight of fabric on the hands, the tactile resistance as it slides along the rod, grounds attention in a quiet, physical interaction that complements the sensory calm it fosters. Even today, the simple act of closing curtains can shift mood, demarcating a boundary between interior reflection and exterior activity. Imagine yourself sitting back, observing the room transformed, corners softened, sounds muted, the light subdued. Thoughts drift more easily, attention becomes flexible, and the mind enters a gentle state of reflection. In this subtle interplay of texture, sound, and shadow, heavy curtains demonstrate a quiet power to shape perception, soothe the senses, and create a pause, a space where the world outside continues without demand, while the mind within is allowed calm, privacy, and the gentle unfolding of ease. Imagine yourself watching the sun dip toward the horizon, the sky a canvas shifting in hue as light bends through the atmosphere. The angle of the sun scatters colors differently at each moment, stretching golds into soft rose and deepening blues into quiet indigos. Ancient civilizations observed these subtleties with careful attention. Mesopotamian astronomers recorded not only the position of the sun but the emotional resonance of its descent, noting how certain angles could calm, inspire, or weigh upon the spirit. In Renaissance painting, artists captured these fleeting moments with precision, understanding that the slant of sunlight shaped the atmosphere of a scene as much as the figures themselves. Shadows lengthened, contours softened or sharpened, and the world beneath the sky seemed to shift in tone with every degree of the sun's tilt. Imagine standing in a field or atop a quiet hill, feeling the warmth fade across your skin while your gaze follows the light stretching along rooftops or hillsides. The mind responds subtly. Awe blooms at expansive glows, while melancholy creeps with muted, slanted shadows. Even in modern life, the sun's descending angle can guide attention, mood, and reflection. A brief pause, watching how light kisses the edges of buildings or trees, can draw thought inward, encouraging introspection or quiet admiration. The world itself seems to breathe with the motion of the sun, and your awareness, tuned to color and gradient, drifts with it. In this way, the angle of sunsets shapes emotion imperceptibly, reminding you that even simple, daily phenomena carry power over perception, guiding consciousness with gentle, unspoken influence. Imagine yourself standing near a refrigerator, the room quiet, your thoughts meandering gently, when a low hum begins to resonate. It is subtle, almost imperceptible at first, a vibration that fills the space just enough to brush against your awareness. The hum is steady, cyclical, mechanical, yet it carries an unexpected influence. It shapes the rhythm of perception, the pace of thought, and the body's own quiet responses. You may not notice the sound consciously, but your breathing softens, posture shifts, and a gentle alertness emerges, blending with the calm of your surroundings. The influence of such tiny machine sounds is not new. In the early 20th century, households began to welcome electric refrigerators, replacing the irregular clatter of iceboxes with consistent, predictable hums. People quickly attuned to this background tone, associating it with preservation, modernity, and order. Even before electricity, the subtle noises of water pumps, clock mechanisms, and hearth fires performed similar roles. Their presence established patterns of reliability, comfort, and quiet stability. Anthropologists note that humans have long been sensitive to environmental soundscapes, tuning their moods and bodily rhythms to the pulse of surroundings, whether natural or mechanical. Psychologists now recognize that low-frequency hums can anchor attention and reduce cognitive friction, providing an almost imperceptible rhythm that the nervous system interprets as constancy. The hum becomes more than a byproduct of refrigeration. It is a gentle companion, a metronome for calm that guides mental tempo without effort. As you notice it now, imagine the subtle ways this sound interacts with thought and sensation. The soft vibration against the floor, the faint resonance in the air, the reassurance that order persists even in quiet solitude. In this unassuming presence, the hum of refrigerated drinks offers a meditation on the understated power of sound. How the smallest, most ordinary noises quietly shape perception, comfort, and calmness, inviting the mind to drift without urgency, anchored in the gentle rhythm of mechanical life. Light is more than illumination. It is a quiet guide for thought, mood, and attention. Imagine a room bathed in soft yellow light, warm and gentle, as if the sun lingers indoors. Shadows are softened, edges blurred, and the mind eases into reflection. Each glance, each subtle movement, is cushioned by the glow, inviting relaxation and a measured pace. This is why homes, reading nooks, and intimate spaces often favor warmer tones. They cultivate calm, encourage lingering, and allow thoughts to drift gently without pressure. History, too, has acknowledged the psychological impact of warmth. Candlelight and oil lamps were never merely practical. They shaped ambience, social behavior, and introspection, guiding gatherings into quiet conversation or solitary contemplation. Now consider a room illuminated by stark white light. Crisp, cool, and precise, it defines space with clarity, sharpening attention and delineating detail. White tones enhance alertness, focus, and the perception of order, yet they can also compress comfort, turning leisure into scrutiny. Offices, laboratories, and classrooms have long utilized these tones, understanding that light can direct cognition as effectively as walls or furniture. The same room, same space, is transformed entirely by color temperature. The body, mind, and rhythm of thought respond to subtle spectral cues. Psychologically, Humans are attuned to these differences even when unaware. Yellow light lowers heart rate, encourages languid movement, and gently slows the pace of thought. White light increases visual acuity, raises attention, and subtly signals urgency, often without conscious recognition. Imagine sitting quietly under one or the other. In warm light, your mind drifts across memories and quiet imaginings. Under white light, details emerge sharply, focus narrows, and observation dominates reflection. Light, like sound, texture, and color, becomes a silent architect of experience. It shapes perception, mood, and behavior, guiding consciousness without command, turning spaces into instruments of feeling. The warmth or coolness of illumination is a subtle, constant companion, orchestrating the tempo of thought and the emotional tone of presence, quietly influencing how you inhabit both space and mind. Imagine reaching for a towel, your hand brushing against its surface. The texture registers immediately. Soft, plush loops enveloping fingertips, or coarse fibers scratching lightly, drawing awareness without words. The sensation travels subtly through your skin, and the body responds before thought intervenes. A soft towel reassures, inviting relaxation, a small comfort that eases tension from shoulders, neck, and mind. Coarseness, by contrast, creates an almost imperceptible alertness, a tiny friction that the body notices long before the mind labels it as discomfort. Throughout history, humans have understood the significance of texture. In ancient baths, Egyptian linen and Roman terrycloth were prized for their touch, not just their utility. The softness of woven cloth signaled care, status, and comfort, while rougher fibers reminded users of labor, work, and endurance. Towels, linens, and fabrics have always carried subtle cues about environment, culture, and social position. Even today, in modern homes, the choice of textile shapes the body's experience. A plush towel on a cold morning can soothe the senses, whereas a rougher weave may sharpen attention, a tactile reminder of the world's edges. Imagine yourself holding the towel, noticing the loops or ridges beneath your fingers, the contrast with skin temperature, the way the material bends and yields. Each touch becomes a quiet conversation between body and environment, a dialogue that does not demand action but softly guides awareness. In these small details, the ordinary becomes intimate, and the mind drifts more easily, cradled by texture and sensation. Towels, though humble, speak in subtle tones. Softness calms, coarseness alerts, and through touch alone, they shape the rhythm of comfort and reflection. Imagine yourself lying back, eyes tracing the ceiling above, and noticing the shadows cast by objects in the room. A lamp's arm stretches across plaster, a window frame scatters angular forms, and suddenly ordinary shapes take on fleeting new identities. The mind, accustomed to pattern recognition, interprets these shapes subtly, sometimes imagining calm figures, sometimes sensing gentle unease, even when no real threat exists. Shadows invite the imagination to wander, to explore spaces between certainty and suggestion, and in doing so, they gently hold attention without demanding it. Throughout human history, shadows have held significance in both practical and symbolic terms. Early humans may have watched flickering firelight across cave walls, noticing how the shapes of their own hands or passing animals transformed the familiar into something almost magical. Imagine yourself in one of these caves, torchlight flickering, shadows stretching and shrinking, forming ephemeral scenes that the mind records yet cannot fully grasp. This quiet dance between light and dark, form and suggestion, creates an intimate dialogue between perception and imagination, a dialogue that continues to influence thought long after the source of the shadow has passed. Even in modern rooms, the play of shadow on a ceiling carries subtle effects. Imagine yourself reclining in a softly lit bedroom, curtains half drawn, a ceiling fan or lamp casting shifting patterns above. Shapes morph slowly, encouraging the mind to drift along them, to invent, to interpret, to wander. There is no rush, no threat, only the gentle rhythm of changing forms, guiding thought in soft arcs. Shadows remind us that perception is as fluid as the mind itself, that the ordinary can become extraordinary, and that even the ceiling above can host a quiet stage for imagination, reflection, and the gentle unfolding of calm awareness. Imagine yourself in a quiet room where glasses touch lightly, producing a delicate clink. The sound is almost fragile, echoing briefly before fading into silence, yet it commands attention. Anthropologists have noted that such subtle auditory cues shape human behavior unconsciously. The gentle resonance prompts care, encouraging slower, more deliberate motion, as if the mind instinctively mirrors the fragility it perceives. In historical households, from candlelit dining halls to modest kitchens, the handling of glassware was an exercise in attentiveness. Servants moved with quiet precision, aware that the smallest slip could shatter not only crystal but the rhythm of domestic order. Even modern etiquette studies reveal that the tone and resonance of tableware influence social interaction. Clinks can signal celebration or caution, subtly guiding conversation and posture, reminding participants of context without explicit instruction. Imagine holding a glass, feeling its smooth weight in your hand, the faint pressure of fingertips transmitting warmth or coolness. When it taps another glass, the brief, crystalline note resonates across the space, altering awareness. You adjust your grip, your gestures, your attention shifts without conscious thought, aligning with the fragility of sound. Even unnoticed, the clink orchestrates subtle reflection, slowing movement, softening speech, and guiding thought. In these small acoustic moments, daily life is quietly shaped. Sound becomes influence, and the fragile resonance of glassware teaches mindfulness, reminding you that perception is sensitive to the subtlest cues, and that awareness can be guided as gently as a note fading into air. Imagine yourself entering a room, the floor beneath your feet responding softly, almost imperceptibly, as your shoes glide over the surface. The quietness of each step carries weight beyond mere movement. It communicates presence without intrusion, authority without overt force, shaping the perception of those around you before a word is spoken. Soft-soled shoes allow motion to flow gently, leaving space for reflection, anticipation, and subtle negotiation within the room's social rhythm. In contrast, heavier, echoing footsteps can assert dominance, interrupt concentration, or demand attention, even in the absence of speech. Throughout history, the sound or silence of footwear has reflected social structure and personal intention. In medieval castles, servants moved swiftly and silently on stone corridors, trained to be nearly invisible, their quiet footsteps preserving the rhythm and order of daily life while preventing distraction or disruption. In the courts of Renaissance Europe, courtiers learned the art of soft steps on polished floors, understanding that subtlety in movement could convey refinement, discretion, or influence. Even in modern workplaces, the difference between the padded soles of a manager and the clatter of boots entering a conference room can subtly shape hierarchy and attention, impacting perception of confidence and composure. Psychologists studying environmental cues note that humans are highly sensitive to auditory feedback in social spaces. The quietness of movement communicates caution, confidence, or ease, modulating the responses of others almost instinctively. It establishes a rhythm of interaction, a layer of nonverbal communication that underscores spoken words and gestures. As you imagine this now, feel the way silent steps influence your awareness, how the soft glide of shoes encourages attentiveness, reflection, and subtle shifts in authority. The quietness of shoes becomes more than a functional detail. It is a gentle guide, orchestrating the dynamics of presence, perception, and power in rooms both grand and ordinary, reminding us of how the smallest sounds, or the absence of them, can quietly shape thought, behavior, and interaction. Mirrors do more than reflect light. They reflect presence, subtly shaping perception and comfort. Imagine a room where a mirror hangs directly opposite a doorway. As you move, your reflection follows, creating an unspoken sense of observation. Even alone, you might adjust posture, gestures, or pace, as if the mirror's gaze were another mind silently recording. Historically, mirrors were prized not only for practicality but for their influence on behavior and atmosphere. In grand halls, they amplified space and light, yet also reminded occupants of social hierarchy, fashion, and decorum. A well-placed mirror could elevate elegance, yet even then, it altered the experience of presence, introducing reflection as a quiet companion or an invisible auditor. Now, imagine a mirror tucked behind furniture, angled subtly, or positioned on a wall less frequented. its effect changes entirely. Rather than feeling observed, the space feels expansive, playful, or mysterious. The mind drifts, unconstrained by the constant feedback of reflection. Psychologists describe this phenomenon. Human cognition is highly sensitive to visual cues of observation. Mirrors can subtly influence posture, alertness, and even emotion, all without conscious awareness. The placement, height, and angle transform a room from welcoming to tense, intimate to formal, or comforting to disquieting. Consider the modern urban apartment. A mirror in a hallway can make the space feel larger, yet simultaneously more surveilled. A bathroom mirror invites self-scrutiny, reinforcing routines and self-awareness. In meditation rooms or studios, mirrors encourage alignment, presence, and focus, but also carry the potential to fragment attention, drawing it outward rather than inward. Imagine walking past one. The reflection shifts with you, introducing a ghost of another presence. Even when unnoticed consciously, the mirror alters the rhythm of movement, mood, and perception, quietly reminding you that spaces are not neutral. They participate in the orchestration of experience, shaping comfort, awareness, and the subtle negotiation between observation and solitude. The position of mirrors, like light, texture, and sound, becomes a silent architect of presence, guiding thought and emotion as insistently as any visible form. Imagine stepping toward a bed, noticing its height before even touching the sheets. A bed low to the ground feels anchored, the floor close beneath your feet, a subtle signal of stability and groundedness. There is comfort in the proximity to solid earth, a quiet reassurance that the body is cradled securely. A higher bed, by contrast, lifts the sleeper above the room, creating a different awareness. The distance introduces a subtle vigilance, an almost imperceptible calculation of balance and descent. The mind registers these cues, and the body responds before thought can articulate why, adjusting posture, weight, and even breathing in anticipation. Across cultures and history, the placement of beds has carried significance beyond mere convenience. Elevated sleeping platforms in ancient civilizations, from Egyptian raised pallets to Japanese tatami arrangements, reflected social status, hygiene practices, and environmental adaptation. Lower sleeping surfaces often aligned with practical safety, closer to warmth from fires, or simpler access during nighttime movement. Even today, subconscious preference for bed height persists. A lofted bed may evoke adventure or authority, a canopy over space, while a mattress on the floor encourages grounding and security. Imagine yourself lying down, sensing the distance from floor to body, noting how this subtle difference affects relaxation. Each adjustment in height shifts perception of space, subtly informing feelings of safety or alertness. The room remains still, yet the body is quietly calibrating, responding to cues that guide comfort without explicit awareness. In the ordinary choice of bed height, there is a dialogue between environment and mind, a gentle shaping of security, and an intimate rhythm that carries through sleep, influencing how deeply, calmly, and safely you drift into rest. Imagine yourself entering a room where laundry has just been folded, the air carrying a gentle, fresh scent of soap and sun-dried cotton. It is a subtle fragrance, soft enough not to demand attention, yet persistent in its quiet reassurance. The smell evokes order and renewal, a signal that things are attended to, cared for, and restored. Your mind relaxes almost imperceptibly, tracing the patterns of domestic rhythm that lie behind each neatly stacked shirt or towel, the invisible labor that produces this comforting calm. For centuries, cleanliness has been intimately tied to well-being, both physically and psychologically. Imagine yourself in a small home centuries ago, where fabrics are washed in streams or heated basins, scrubbed and rinsed carefully, and hung to dry under sun and wind. The smell of clean cloth was never just an aroma. It was a marker of care, of routine, and of the subtle rhythms of daily life. Each inhalation carried a sense of structure and attention, a reassurance that the world was orderly, that simple actions could create lasting effects on perception and mood. Even now, the familiar scent of detergent, the faint trace of fabric softener, or the warm fragrance of towels just folded, carries the same effect. Imagine yourself lifting a pillowcase or unfolding a shirt, letting the aroma brush against your senses. It is both ephemeral and persistent, a whisper of calm, a signal of continuity and renewal. In these small interactions, ordinary scents orchestrate mood, guiding thought and perception in quiet ways, reminding you that even the simplest domestic acts, the folding of clothes, the washing of linens, can create a space of serenity, reflection, and gentle ease. Imagine yourself in a room where appliances quietly hum, their vibrations subtle yet constant, like an invisible background song. The refrigerator's low drone, the washing machine's distant rumble, even the faint whir of a ceiling fan, all blend into a soft mechanical chorus that often passes unnoticed. Yet these vibrations shape perception subtly. The mind registers rhythm without conscious thought, influencing focus, mood, and the sense of presence in the space. Historians of domestic life note that as homes became filled with machines in the 20th century, people grew accustomed to continuous background hums. Early electric households introduced a constant auditory texture, replacing the stillness of candlelit rooms with the quiet insistence of motors and compressors. Some found comfort in these steady pulses, a reminder of life and order. Others experienced mild unease, sensing movement without visible cause. Imagine sitting in a kitchen or living room, feeling the floor or countertop transmit vibrations so faint that only the subconscious registers them, while attention drifts between tasks and thoughts. Even today, these imperceptible hums orchestrate awareness. Their presence marks time and function, grounding the mind while inviting a slow, meditative reflection on the interaction between humans and machines. Like a background melody, the vibrations are ever-present yet unobtrusive, shaping cognition and emotion almost invisibly. In this quiet mechanical symphony, daily life becomes a choreography of sensation, where attention moves with the pulses of appliances, and consciousness drifts with their subtle, unceasing rhythm. Imagine yourself gazing through a window late at night, the world hushed, and the sky unfolding above in silent brilliance. Each star, distant yet visible, scatters its light across the darkness, creating patterns that your mind interprets with a subtle, almost unconscious attentiveness. The brightness of stars influences perception and mood, drawing thought outward while inviting quiet introspection. Even in urban spaces where light pollution softens their glow, glimpses of celestial points carry a gentle weight, a reminder of scale, continuity, and the slow rhythm of cosmic time. Throughout human history, the stars have guided not only navigation and calendars but also emotion and reflection. Ancient sailors tracked constellations across oceans, their constancy providing reassurance amid uncertainty, while philosophers and poets wove the night sky into meditations on existence and the passage of time. In early observatories, astronomers noted that light from distant suns offered more than empirical data. It elicited awe, quiet contemplation, and a gentle recalibration of human perception against the vast backdrop of the universe. Even today, psychologists suggest that exposure to faint, steady light in darkness can subtly influence mood, fostering calmness, reducing anxiety, and encouraging reflective thought. As you imagine this now, notice the way the faint glow filters through windows, how it illuminates the room softly, casting delicate shadows and inspiring reverie. Each point of light becomes a quiet cue, reminding the mind of cycles far larger than personal concerns, yet intimately linked to the rhythm of consciousness. The brightness of stars is more than distant illumination. It is a bridge between inner thought and outer expanse, a gentle, cosmic whisper that frames perception, mood, and the subtle unfolding of reflection in the quiet hours of night. Neon light is a modern paradox. Bright, alluring, and yet subtly intrusive. Imagine standing on a quiet city street at night, the sky deep and muted, and above you, neon signs cast sharp pools of color, pink, green, blue, on wet asphalt and building facades. The glow is almost hypnotic, drawing the eye, guiding movement, and reshaping perception of space. Shadows become colored, edges dissolve, and the familiar forms of buildings, vehicles, and passers-by are transformed into a palette of light and reflection. There is beauty here, yet it carries a persistent energy that the natural night does not. Nights bathed in neon feel alive, awake, and alert, rather than calm, restorative, or contemplative. Historically, artificial illumination has always changed human experience. Gas lamps once extended social life into the dark hours, creating warmth and safety, yet also subtly accelerating activity. Neon, however, is sharper, louder, more intense in its presence. Its color temperature and saturation stimulate visual processing and attention, nudging the mind into alertness even when the body desires rest. Psychologists note that artificial lights, especially those with high contrast or unusual hues, can disrupt circadian rhythms, subtly delaying the brain's natural preparation for sleep. The city street, in this sense, becomes a stage where neon directs behavior. Pedestrians pause to read signs, eyes dart to movement, and thoughts follow the flicker and glow, rarely still. Yet there is more than mere disturbance. Neon also carries emotion. Nostalgia for past decades, excitement of urban culture, or a quiet alienation as colors flicker over abandoned corners. Imagine a diner window glowing pink-orange in the distance, puddles reflecting a fractured rainbow across the street. The mind absorbs both beauty and tension, noticing details it might otherwise miss, even as it is unconsciously nudged to stay awake, alert, and aware. Neon transforms the ordinary night into a synthetic landscape, a rhythm of color and contrast that animates streets, stretches perception, and imposes a restless, almost magnetic energy. Unlike candlelight or moonlight, neon does not lull. It awakens, engaging senses and shaping experience, subtly reminding that artificial illumination is not neutral. It participates, insistently, in the choreography of attention, emotion, and awareness during hours that were once meant for rest. Imagine reaching for a bag in a quiet room, and the sudden rustle of plastic fills the air. The sound is sharp, irregular, almost intrusive, and the body responds before the mind has fully registered it. Shoulders tighten subtly, the heartbeat quickens imperceptibly, and awareness heightens. Unlike soft fabric or paper, the crinkling, scratchy quality of plastic carries an edge that feels abrupt, even aggressive, as if the environment itself has intruded into a private moment. The noise is ordinary, yet it carries an unmistakable power to shift mood, drawing attention outward, away from calm reflection, toward alertness, even mild irritation. Humans have always responded instinctively to sharp, irregular sounds. In nature, sudden rustlings in brush or trees signaled predators, unknown movement, or imminent change. Modern environments have replaced rustling leaves with synthetic equivalents, but the response remains. Harsh, unpredictable noise triggers subtle physiological alertness. In kitchens, offices, or shopping aisles, the crinkle of plastic is almost universally recognized as intrusive, a reminder of modern life's interruptions. Even ambiently, the sound lingers, registering subconsciously, shaping perception of space and comfort. Imagine yourself holding the bag, listening closely to each crinkle and snap, feeling how your body reacts before thought intervenes. The sensation is fleeting but undeniable, a small disturbance in stillness. In these ordinary interactions, the environment communicates silently, influencing mood, attention, and bodily awareness. The rustle of plastic is more than sound. It is a subtle signal, a tactile intrusion for the ears, reminding us that ordinary objects carry their own rhythms, capable of shaping perception, alertness, and emotional texture in ways we rarely name, but always feel. Imagine yourself settling into a quiet room, eyes drifting over the walls and noticing the wallpaper. Patterns repeat across the surface, delicate floral motifs, geometric shapes, or abstract swirls, creating a rhythm that the mind can follow. Symmetry draws attention effortlessly, offering comfort in predictability, while irregularities or abrupt shifts in design invite subtle unease. Even when you are not actively analyzing, these patterns shape perception, guiding thought along gentle currents of order or mild tension. Wallpaper has long been more than decoration. In the 18th and 19th centuries, intricate designs were carefully chosen to reflect taste, social status, or mood. Imagine yourself in a Victorian parlor, sunlight filtering through lace curtains, wallpaper stretching across walls with repeating medallions or vines. The patterns provided a constant visual rhythm, a silent orchestration that both anchored and directed attention. Guests and residents alike absorbed these designs unconsciously, feeling either calm or subtly unsettled, as the symmetry of shapes and the interplay of color worked on perception without words. Even in modern interiors, wallpaper continues to influence mood. Imagine yourself reclining on a sofa, your gaze drifting over a repeating pattern. The repetition offers a quiet lull, an almost musical cadence of shapes and colors. The mind traces lines and curves, senses the harmony or notes the inconsistencies, and adjusts the internal rhythm accordingly. In this subtle interaction, wallpaper demonstrates how visual patterns, even static ones, engage cognition and emotion, gently shaping calm or tension. It reminds you that everyday surroundings carry a silent influence, and that even the walls around you can participate in the quiet orchestration of thought, perception, and the slow unfolding of awareness. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, the faint murmur of leaves brushing against one another outside your window. The sound is subtle, almost fragile, yet it carries a rhythm that the mind registers without effort. Across centuries, poets and philosophers have noted how rustling trees anchor thought, drawing attention outward while simultaneously inviting inward reflection. The gentle, unpredictable whisper of foliage creates a balance between awareness and calm, a natural cadence that encourages the mind to release tension. In rural villages and forest settlements, inhabitants describe the effect with practical detail. Doors and windows left open allowed the soft chorus of leaves to filter through rooms, easing daily labor and providing a subtle soundtrack to meals, study, or meditation. Even the slightest variation, a gust lifting branches, a single leaf brushing against another, produced a microshift in perception. Researchers today note similar effects. Ambient natural sounds engage parasympathetic responses, slowing heart rate, softening breath, and promoting cognitive ease. Imagine leaning back in a chair, listening to the interplay of wind and foliage, your attention drifting along with the movement of branches, your thoughts untangling in the gentle cadence. The whisper of leaves is never intrusive, it does not demand engagement, yet it quietly orchestrates presence. Its irregular rhythm mirrors life itself, patterns within unpredictability. Over time, the mind aligns with the gentle pulse, finding calm without effort. In these moments, consciousness is drawn to subtlety, learning once again that attention need not be forced, that serenity is woven into the small, persistent movements of the world just beyond the windowpane, grounding thought in a quiet, enduring rhythm. Imagine yourself lifting a cup, its surface cool or warm beneath your fingers, and noticing not just its form but the hue that defines it. The color of a cup carries subtle weight, shaping perception, mood, and the experience of even the simplest act. Warm tones, soft reds, gentle oranges, muted yellows, invite comfort, a sense of coziness, and quiet grounding. They wrap the hand in reassurance, evoke hearths and morning sunlight, and lend a slow rhythm to thought, encouraging reflection and calm. In contrast, cooler hues, blues, greens, or pale grays, introduce clarity, sharpening attention, subtly alerting the mind, and lending a briskness to the act of holding, drinking, and observing. Throughout history, artisans and households have understood the power of color in everyday objects. In medieval Europe, ceramic glazes reflected status and intention, with deep amber or ochre tones signaling warmth and hospitality, while pale stoneware suggested sobriety and focus. In East Asian tea culture, the selection of cup color has long been integral to ceremony, balancing aesthetic calm with the mental clarity needed to appreciate ritual. Even in modern psychology, studies suggest that the hue of objects in immediate proximity influences emotional response, cognitive processing, and subtle bodily reactions, so much so that a simple cup can sway mood without a word being spoken. As you imagine this now, notice the tactile coolness or warmth under your fingers, how the color guides perception, how a quiet amber invites lingering thought, while a pale blue hints at focus and precision. The color of cups becomes more than visual decoration. It is a gentle cue, a whispering guide that shapes daily rituals, turning ordinary sips into moments of reflection, awareness, and subtle influence over mood, thought, and the rhythm of attention. Rugs are often considered decoration, yet their placement quietly orchestrates perception and mood. Imagine a room where a large rug lies perfectly centered beneath furniture. It draws the eye and the body, creating a sense of balance and order. Steps are guided, chairs feel grounded, and movement across the space becomes deliberate and calm. Historically, rugs have served not only practical purposes, insulation, comfort, and sound absorption, but also psychological ones. In palaces and grand halls, the central carpet marked status, defined ceremonial space, and subtly dictated posture and behavior. Even in modern homes, the alignment of a rug provides a sense of harmony, shaping how one inhabits a room without conscious thought. Now consider a rug placed askew, misaligned with walls or furniture. The effect is subtle yet noticeable. The eye detects imbalance, the mind registers disharmony, and the body moves with slight adjustment, compensating for the irregularity. Movement feels uncertain. The space becomes slightly tense, though not overtly uncomfortable. Psychologists note that humans are deeply sensitive to spatial cues. Symmetry and alignment create comfort, while asymmetry triggers subtle alertness. Rugs, though silent and static, participate in this psychological architecture, influencing mood, posture, and attention. A skewed rug does not alarm, but it whispers that the room is unpredictable, that the rhythm of space is slightly off, and that the mind must recalibrate its expectations with each step. Even texture matters. Thick wool, soft cotton, or flat woven fibers change how sound travels, how weight is perceived, and how steps are experienced. The placement and feel of rugs together create an invisible choreography of interaction between body, mind, and environment. Imagine walking barefoot across a central rug. Your steps are measured, your posture relaxed, your attention subtly guided. On a skewed rug, movement becomes aware, small hesitations arise, and mood shifts, even if imperceptibly. The position of rugs, like light, furniture, and flooring, is a silent architect of experience, shaping comfort, tension, and the rhythm of presence in ways often overlooked but persistently felt. Imagine sitting alone in a dark room, the soft glow of a phone screen illuminating your face. The light is unnatural, blue-tinged, distinct from the warm flicker of candle or lamp. Your eyes register it immediately, pupils constricting, body chemistry adjusting subtly, before the mind fully understands the change. This gentle intruder affects melatonin rhythms, the hormone guiding sleep, quietly signaling wakefulness even as the rest of the room rests in shadow. The glow commands attention, drawing thought outward toward messages, images, and notifications, while your body leans involuntarily toward alertness. Historically, humans relied on natural cycles, sunlight and fire, to regulate rest. Evening darkness was a signal for slowing, for preparing the body and mind for sleep. Artificial lighting, even from small flames, was warm and diffuse, gently easing physiology toward rest. The blue light emitted from modern screens disrupts this ancient rhythm. Studies have shown that even brief exposure before bed can delay sleep onset, shift circadian timing, and subtly heighten cognitive arousal. In this way, the screen's quiet glow is not merely illumination. It is a signal, a small but persuasive reminder that the night has changed, and with it, the body's expectations of rest. Imagine yourself noticing the light, feeling its subtle influence on posture, focus, and awareness. The room remains still, yet the glow commands quiet authority. Ordinary objects, in their modern guise, carry power over physiology, attention, and perception. A simple device becomes a regulator of time and rhythm, nudging the body toward wakefulness even in a world designed for stillness. In these moments, the glow of a screen is more than illumination. It is a gentle disruption, an invisible tide that shapes the flow of rest and alertness, silently guiding the body's inner clock. Imagine yourself standing before a door, running your hand along its surface, feeling the solidity beneath your fingers. A thin door transmits every sound. Footsteps in the hallway, distant voices, the clatter of objects moving elsewhere. Even without consciously listening, the brain absorbs this background, measuring movement, anticipating events, a subtle tension threading through awareness. A thick door, by contrast, absorbs and muffles the world beyond. Sounds arrive softened, shapes of noise reduced to a gentle hum, creating a sense of containment, of sanctuary. Throughout history, the design and construction of doors have reflected both practical necessity and psychological insight. In medieval homes or early urban apartments, thick wooden or reinforced doors were not only barriers against intrusion but instruments of calm, shielding inhabitants from the unpredictable rhythm of outside life. Imagine yourself in a centuries-old house, the wooden frame solid, hinges creaking softly with every movement, the thickness creating a pause, a filter between private and public, between chaos and order. The door is more than material. It is a threshold of perception, shaping how the interior world feels in contrast to the outside. Even today, door thickness influences our subconscious sense of safety. Imagine yourself closing a heavy door behind you at the end of a long day, the muted click signaling separation from distant sounds, carrying with it a subtle reassurance. Thoughts can slow, muscles release tension, and the mind enters a state of reflection, unhurried. In the gentle isolation created by thick doors, the ordinary space transforms, offering a quiet, almost imperceptible control over perception. Here, the weight and density of wood or metal do more than block sound. They shape the rhythm of thought, the cadence of calm, and the slow unfolding of awareness within the shelter of your room. Imagine yourself resting your hand on a window pane, the smooth surface unexpectedly cold against your skin. The chill creeps inward, subtle yet insistent, nudging thought and mood in ways that are difficult to name. Centuries of human experience reveal that temperature, even when felt briefly through touch, shapes perception almost instantly. Windows, once simple openings to the outside, became conduits of sensation, connecting the interior world with external weather, light, and air, each chill or warmth guiding consciousness without words. In older homes, drafty panes and uninsulated glass were common. Inhabitants learned to anticipate the shift in mood as hands brushed against cold surfaces. A shiver might accompany reflection, a quiet pause in activity, or a heightened attention to detail. Writers and artists noted the subtle interplay between environment and creativity, how touch could trigger alertness or introspection, how a sudden cold spot could guide thought in unforeseen directions. Imagine sitting by a window on a winter morning, feeling the chill creep along the palm, your mind slowing or sharpening in response, body and cognition intertwined with simple contact. Even today, the sensation of cold glass continues to influence mood. Its firmness beneath your fingers, combined with the temperature contrast, draws awareness to the present moment, encouraging stillness and reflection. It is a reminder that physical sensations, however brief, quietly sculpt experience, guiding thought with imperceptible precision. In these moments, consciousness dances with environment, learning that even the chill of a window pane can gently shift perception, focus, and emotional tone, grounding the mind in awareness of the here and now. Imagine yourself stepping into a room where the air carries the faint, unmistakable scent of wet clothes. It is subtle yet insistent, a musty note that drifts from forgotten laundry or damp garments hung too long. The aroma lingers at the edges of awareness, touching thought and mood before any conscious judgment arises. Even without words, it has the power to tilt perception, nudging attention toward caution, discomfort, or quiet unease. It is neither dramatic nor threatening, yet the mind registers the subtle irregularity, the disruption in the expected rhythm of the environment. Throughout human history, the scent of damp textiles has carried both practical and social significance. In early European households, laundries were carefully managed, not only to cleanse but to control odor. Prolonged moisture could signal neglect or imbalance in domestic order. In tropical and temperate regions, societies developed rituals of sun-drying and airing fabrics, understanding that the lingering smell of moisture could subtly influence the atmosphere of a home, affecting hospitality, social mood, and even the perception of cleanliness. Psychologists today confirm that olfactory cues are closely linked to emotion. Musty scents can evoke anxiety, distraction, or low-level vigilance, even without conscious awareness. As you imagine this now, notice how your own posture and breathing might shift, how the faintly sour note of wet clothes invites a heightened attentiveness, a subtle alertness to the environment. It is a quiet reminder of the interplay between senses and cognition, of how even ordinary domestic odors quietly orchestrate perception and emotion. The smell of wet clothes, unassuming as it seems, becomes a bridge between physical reality and inner state, shaping thought and feeling with gentle persistence, a testament to the understated influence of scent in the textures of daily life. Rain falling on a roof is more than a natural event. It is a rhythm, a quiet percussion that resonates through both space and mind. Imagine sitting indoors while droplets tap against shingles, metal, or tiles. Each strike produces a sound distinct to its surface, a muted thud on clay tiles, a hollow patter on tin, a soft drum on wood. These subtle differences are noticed subconsciously, guiding attention without command, creating patterns the mind begins to anticipate and absorb. There is a gentle constancy here, a predictable pulse that quietly shapes perception, encouraging reflection, slowing thought, and inviting the body towards stillness. Historically, humans have been intimately connected to rain. In agrarian societies, the sound of rain signaled sustenance, safety, and routine. Roofs, once fragile or improvised, became shelters not only from physical exposure but also from mental unrest. Even in urban spaces, the sound of rain on roofs or apartment terraces carries nostalgia, a memory of childhood, quiet contemplation, or evenings spent observing droplets slide down glass panes. Psychologists note that rhythmic, natural sounds evoke a state known as soft fascination, where attention is gently engaged without stress. The mind can drift, ruminate, or settle, allowing both creativity and calm to arise. The sound also interacts with space. Thick roofs soften impact, amplifying tranquility, thin or metallic surfaces intensify, producing sharper rhythms that encourage alert observation alongside relaxation. Imagine lying in bed, the rainfall above a constant companion. Each beat is familiar yet never identical, a subtle improvisation that guides your breathing and posture. The mind synchronizes with its cadence, creating a shared rhythm between body and environment. Even when sleep is elusive, reflection is welcomed, thoughts meandering with each gentle tap. The sound of rain on roofs is thus both a natural metronome and a psychological balm. It structures time in a tactile auditory way, offering a rhythm that anchors awareness while allowing the mind to float, balancing stillness with gentle engagement, and turning a simple storm into a meditation, a lullaby, and an intimate connection with the world outside. Imagine stepping into a library. The air is still, almost reverent, and the quiet settles around you like a soft blanket. Every footstep, every movement, every turning page becomes a subtle event, registered by the body before the mind labels it. Silence here is not absence, it is presence, a canvas upon which attention stretches gently, focusing without force, allowing thoughts to drift yet anchor simultaneously. The hush transforms ordinary awareness into something more reflective, a rhythm of observation and internal pause that feels almost sacred. Throughout history, libraries have cultivated this quiet intentionally. Monastic scriptoriums of medieval Europe, lined with vellum and ink, demanded silence to protect the fragile works of knowledge. The act of whispering, of careful movement, became a ritual, teaching discipline not just in study, but in thought itself. Even today, the architecture of libraries, the high ceilings, the spacing of tables, the soft carpeting, shapes behavior subtly, reinforcing calm and attentiveness. The body adapts to this environment, posture straightening, breathing slowing, eyes adjusting to the gentle light on paper or screen, all guided by the unspoken rules of quietude. Imagine yourself moving through the stacks, fingers brushing the spines of books, the faint scent of aged paper filling the air. Each moment is magnified by silence, and the mind follows suit, drawing focus inward while observing the world around. In libraries, quiet is more than lack of sound. It is a medium through which awareness deepens, respect for knowledge emerges, and the ordinary becomes contemplative. Attention flows differently here, more deliberately, shaped by absence as much as presence, a subtle reminder that stillness can be the most profound companion of thought. Imagine yourself lying back, feeling the softness of a pillow beneath your head, and noticing its color. A vibrant hue, crimson, bright orange, or electric blue, catches the eye, subtly stimulating the mind, lifting attention even in quiet moments. Muted shades, soft beige, gentle gray, or faded sage, invite the body and mind to release tension, to sink slowly into rest. Even when unobserved consciously, Color carries an influence, shaping the tempo of thought, the rise and fall of awareness, and the quiet rhythm of relaxation. Historically, humans have long understood the connection between color and mood. In ancient cultures, textiles were carefully chosen for bedrooms, chambers, and resting spaces. Imagine yourself in a shaded Egyptian chamber, cushions dyed with natural pigments, each tone selected to reflect warmth, serenity, or energy. In Renaissance interiors, velvet and silk pillows balanced intensity with softness, mediating light and attention, guiding perception toward calm or subtle alertness. These choices were never purely decorative. They interacted with the rhythms of daily life, providing cues to the mind about when to awaken, when to reflect, and when to rest. Even today, the color of a pillow can influence perception without demanding it. Imagine yourself adjusting a cushion, letting your gaze linger on its tone. Soft colors encourage lingering thought, gentle awareness, and the gradual release of tension. Bright colors may awaken a flicker of focus, an unexpected spark in the middle of calm. In these small details, the mind learns to respond to environment, to integrate sensory input into internal rhythm. Pillows, simple and familiar, demonstrate how subtle aesthetic choices shape experience, guiding thought, shaping mood, and creating the gentle architecture of calm within a room. Imagine yourself standing or sitting near a subway line, the world above calm while below, unseen, trains rumble past. A subtle tremor travels through the floor, barely perceptible, yet enough for the body to sense it. These vibrations reach the mind before thought can form, adjusting awareness, softening or sharpening emotion without a single word. Urban dwellers have long attuned themselves to this quiet rhythm, feeling time marked not only by clocks but by the pulse of movement beneath the streets. Historically, engineers and psychologists observed that continuous low-frequency vibrations affect perception and mood. Even when unnoticed consciously, these tremors can influence stress levels, attention, and emotional tone. Commuters might feel a subtle tension before a train's arrival, or a slight calm as the motion passes. Imagine the sensation. The floor hums beneath your feet, a faint vibration threading through your body, aligning pulse and breath with an invisible mechanical cadence. In everyday life, this unseen rhythm shapes experience subtly. Offices, shops, and homes near transit lines carry the vibrations into their spaces, embedding a quiet, mechanical heartbeat into daily routines. Without sound, without sight, the tremor acts on perception, guiding thought and mood with gentle insistence. It is a reminder that consciousness is never isolated, that even unseen forces, machines running deep beneath the city, can orchestrate awareness. In these small, persistent pulses, the world whispers to the mind, shaping how presence, attention, and emotion unfold in ways almost impossible to name, yet impossible to ignore. Imagine yourself in a dimly lit room, the soft glow of an alarm clock marking time in gentle pulses of red or green. The light is small, contained, yet it exerts an influence far beyond its size, subtly shaping thought and perception. A red glow tends to sharpen attention, signaling urgency, stirring the mind into alertness even before consciousness fully awakens. Green, in contrast, is softer on the eyes, inviting a slower, more reflective awareness, easing the transition from sleep to wakefulness with a muted reassurance. The color, the intensity, and even the position of the numbers frame not just time, but mood, expectation, and bodily rhythm. Throughout history, humans have been attentive to visual cues of temporal order. Sundials, candle clocks, and water clocks offered gentle indicators of passage, their signals influencing work, ritual, and rest. In the modern age, the alarm clock's luminous digits act as a constant companion, translating abstract time into immediate, perceivable cues. Psychologists note that subtle color cues in our environment directly impact alertness, heart rate, and cognitive processing. A red glow can increase heart rate and induce readiness, while softer hues allow for a gentler mental engagement with the day's unfolding. As you imagine this now, consider how the small, luminous numbers quietly guide your attention, how their color frames your perception of urgency, and how the mind interprets these signals before words or deliberate thought arise. The glow of alarm clocks is more than functional. It is a quiet mediator between sleep and wakefulness, perception and action, subtle yet persistent, influencing mood, cognition, and the tempo of daily life with a calm but insistent authority. The presence of a pet is not only felt through touch or sound, but also through motion, subtle, familiar, and quietly rhythmic. Imagine a cat padding across a wooden floor, paws silent yet deliberate, tail swaying with its own gentle cadence. Or a dog shifting from one cozy spot to another, ears flicking at distant sounds, paws pressing into carpet, small movements filling the room with life without disturbance. These motions are almost imperceptible, yet they reshape perception of space, creating companionship and easing the mind's tendency toward solitude. The rhythm of a pet's movements becomes a kind of quiet punctuation in the day, a gentle counterpoint to human stillness, anchoring attention without demanding it. Historically, humans have shared homes with animals for millennia, yet the psychological significance of their presence extends beyond practicality. In medieval households, animals wandered through kitchens and chambers, bringing warmth, alertness, and a sense of life to spaces otherwise quiet. Today, pets continue this subtle influence. The rise and fall of a tail, the soft scratch of claws, even the measured pacing across a room invites calm observation. Psychologists note that observing slow, familiar movement can reduce stress and lower heart rate, triggering what is called soft fascination, a state where attention is gently engaged and the mind can wander without worry. Even small gestures matter. A hamster spinning in its wheel, a bird hopping along a perch, a rabbit stretching its limbs, all introduce a dynamic pattern into otherwise static environments. Imagine sitting quietly, your thoughts drifting, while a cat curls near your feet and occasionally shifts position, stirring only gently. Each motion is an anchor, subtly connecting your awareness to life around you, softening the edges of loneliness, and creating a comforting rhythm in the space. Pets indoors become silent companions, moving in ways that harmonize with human presence, shaping mood without language, and reminding us that life, calm, attentive, and gentle, persists in quiet motion, guiding reflection, easing tension, and encouraging a slow, mindful inhabitation of the moment. Imagine standing in a room, letting your gaze wander over the walls, the ceiling, the subtle angles where surfaces meet. Each line, each corner, each curve speaks quietly to your perception, guiding posture, attention, and even mood before words can form. A low ceiling can bring a sense of coziness or containment. A high one opens awareness, inviting thought to drift upward. Narrow spaces can feel protective or confining, while broad expanses inspire ease or hesitation. These effects are subtle, almost imperceptible, yet the body registers them instinctively, adjusting breathing, balance, and focus in dialogue with the space itself. Architects and designers have long understood this silent influence. From the vaulted ceilings of Gothic cathedrals to the low, earthen dwellings of ancient villages, human-built spaces have shaped behavior and emotion without direct instruction. The Japanese concept of the thoughtful use of space between objects, or the deliberate proportions in Renaissance rooms, demonstrates an awareness that the environment itself carries meaning. Light, shadow, and geometry work together, forming an unspoken narrative that guides how a person moves, observes, and feels within it. Imagine yourself slowly walking, noticing the gentle angles of walls, the way the ceiling curves above, the subtle cues of proportion and spacing. You may not articulate why you feel calm or tense, elevated or grounded, yet the room itself has whispered its influence. In these quiet, ordinary spaces, geometry becomes a companion, shaping perception and emotion. Every structure, every line, carries an invisible hand, guiding thought, focus, and comfort, creating a subtle rhythm between body and space, a dialogue that unfolds without a single word being spoken.